Welcome into a very special draft day edition of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. It is not Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton today, though technically that is the official name of the show. Today it is Mic'd Up with Dan and Fulton, as I welcome in my good man Dan Lucero.
You're going to be top billing? I'm not sure I deserve that.
We'll go top billing.
This is your show. I am merely squatting for the next 3 hours. This is your deal. Go ahead and give yourself the top billing. Mic'd Up with Fulton and Dan. That flows.
That does flow.
That's fine.
You know what? I will finally actually give myself some props, and I guess I will take the top billing today. But yes, Dan will be my co-host this afternoon, as Jake and Brendan will be live for the NFL Draft this afternoon in Kansas City. So 580 Sports Talk will be, as it was many years ago, hosted by Brendan Dorzinski and Jake LeBon will be helping out this. So a little co-host swap with all the travel we're doing a little bit today.
It's like that spouse swap show. Remember when they used to do?
I do. I like Wife Swap on TLC.
It was called Wife Swap.
I believe it was called Wife Swap on TLC.
It's just wild that they called it that.
TV used to be
trading
weird.
spouses?
Yes,
that's what it was.
Trading spouses.
Trading spouses. Yeah.
I don't think they called it Wife Swap.
That's wild.
It wouldn't surprise me if they did, though. It truly would. I
think that's something else.
I think you're right there. I think that's something else.
Oh, it is already off to a great start here on Mic'd Up this afternoon. We have a lot of NFL draft to get you today. The draft round one is tonight. 7 o'clock is when it is supposed to begin in Kansas City. First pick will be like 7:05 with how long ads and what have you and whatever. But 7 o'clock is when the first round begins tonight. The Carolina Panthers are on the clock, and allegedly they have decided on who they will pick at number one. We'll see how long they take. But round one of the NFL draft tonight, so we're going to talk a lot of NFL draft today. Jake and I had spent a lot of time the past week or so looking at draft scenarios for the Chiefs. So Dan and I today are going to bring all those back and look at them specifically. What are they likely to do? And more importantly, what players would need to exist in what spots for the Chiefs to pull a trigger on different draft choices? We're going to break down the NFL draft as a whole, give some of our takes, our predictions, our thoughts. We'll also, Jake and I broke down our mock drafts on yesterday's show. We will get Dan's mock draft and where he has everything falling. Who does he have number one overall? Who does he have his Seattle Seahawks taking both at pick 5 and pick 20 in the NFL draft coming up tonight as well? We will talk about the Kansas City Royals, who lost again, who were shut out again. There's not a better spin I can put on that after yesterday's performance, where Zach Gallen looked like, I don't know, insert prime mid-90s pitcher here with his 12 strikeouts against the Royals last night. We're also going to take a little ABA playoffs day. Giannis Antetokounmpo, as the Miami Heat knocked out the Milwaukee Bucks last night, had a very interesting answer when asked about if this season was a failure for the Bucks this season, losing into the 8 seed Miami Heat, the first play-in team to ever advance after their first series is Miami Heat. We're going to look at what Giannis said. We're going to look at the NBA playoffs and what happened coming out of the fallout last night. You can join in on the show, as always, on the text line, 785-272-9429. And, of course, we are also live on YouTube, as always. You can go to our YouTube channel, Sports on 580. Subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it. You can jump in on the comments section of the YouTube feed as well.
People can see my hat today.
They can because of the camera angle.
Yeah.
They can see your hat today.
So that studio, you're in the control room. I'm usually in the control room when I do the show with Brendan. And the lighting and the positioning of the camera makes it kind of hard to see the hat that I'm wearing to comprehend it. But everybody can see the power cat fitted today. One of my favorite hats. I like purple as a general rule.
It's a good color.
And I just think the new era power cat hat was really slick. I've yet to find a KU fitted that I love enough to buy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like the Trajan KU doesn't really like the big block Trajan KU doesn't really do it for me. I don't know. I wish they put like one of the like old
Jayhawk logos on
you need a fitted KU hat with the Warhawk on it. That's what I think you need.
I need the shy standing on one leg hawk on a hat.
That like 1912 KU.
Yeah, the one that looks like it's shyly asking someone's daughter to go to the homecoming dance. That's the Jayhawk I need on it.
I have one fitted KU hat, and the reason I don't wear it the most is it is too small for my head.
Oh, no.
So wearing it's KU gave it to me for free while I was working for them, and I guess they didn't have my head measurement size properly. So I don't wear it a lot because it's very constricting. It gives me a bit of a headache because it's not a properly fitting hat.
Yeah, there comes a time every adult's life. Your head size jumps up a bit.
Yeah,
you're not prepared for it, but it does happen. And I had to make the adjustment. Still behind. Still need to be Royals fitted.
My old one no longer fits my head, so I need to.
I will always give the recommendation to the City Connect Royals hat. It's very nice. It is one of my personal favorites, as I wore it yesterday yet again. Speaking of headaches, Dan, the Kansas City Royals lost 2-0 yesterday afternoon to Zach Gallen, the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, they did.
They're 6-19 through 25 games. Yuck is that record.
That's so bad.
They were shut out for the 6th time this season yesterday afternoon. Easily the most in the major leagues. They have, in 25 games, been shut out 6 times. That is, if my math is correct, and it's not often correct, I believe 54 innings of scoreless baseball. Not as much scoreless baseball they've had overall, because there's a lot of partial scoreless innings in there. But in shutouts alone, 54 innings of scoreless baseball. And looking at the game last night, part of it was Zach Gallen is one of the better unknown pitchers in Major League Baseball. I don't think enough people realize how good Zach Gallen is.
He is easily in the top 10.
I think starting pitcher in Major League Baseball.
I think at this point he's been doing it long enough. You can make a compelling argument top 5 starting pitcher in the game. And
he dominated.
Like obviously we know the Royals lineup isn't any great shakes. We're going to get into that a little bit more, but sometimes you get dominated by a really good arm, and the Royals did. Yesterday, 12 strikeouts for Gallen. I think it was 6 1/3, and the bullpen slammed the door on him from there.
And that's what it is. And sometimes you run into an ace pitcher. I mean, the Royals had that exact same problem with Shohei Ohtani last Friday against the Angels. And that's kind of what it felt like with Zach Gallen, because when he leads Major League Baseball in strikeouts at this moment in time among starting pitchers, has not allowed a run in nearly 30 consecutive innings at this point. He is just, and it happens. You run into guys like that. But with all this stuff we talk about the Royals, and shout out Ryan Yarbrough real quick. I mean, it's only 4 innings, but 4 innings of 1-run baseball from a bulk reliever having to make a start because you don't have a 5th starter. You can't really complain about that.
Yeah, that was fine. I still feel like Yarbrough's just not really equipped to be a starting pitcher, but he's what they've got for now. Nobody at AAA is beating down the door to take that rotation spot. The idea is Daniel Lynch will be ready soon, hopefully here in a couple of weeks, and that can be his spot when he's ready to come back. But for what he is and what he can offer, you'll take 4 innings of 1-run ball from Ryan Yarbrough. You'll take that without asking too many questions about it. You'll take it and run.
You will, and 1 run combined in 4 innings from the bullpen. Amir Garrett gives up the 1 run because why not with Amir Garrett at this point? But the rest of the bullpen shuts the door. So the pitching side was the positive for the Royals this year. It really was. I think what I've started to at least come to grips to for me personally with this Royals lineup, the top 4, and then I will hear an argument for the top 5 can actually do something. Between when it's Bobby Witt Jr., MJ Melendez, Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez, and I think Edward Olivares is starting to do enough consistently to warrant consideration of he is a bat you are not helpless to have in the lineup. They, last night, yet again, all kind of did something. But that drop-off for the back half of the order is just so stark. And that, I think, was the microcosm in the 9th inning yesterday of what happened to the Royals. They get leadoff guys on. It looks like it's going to be fine. But when that last gas can't get it done, you got to turn it over to the bottom half of the order. That bottom half just can't get it done. And that's what did them in last night.
Yeah, too many easy outs in that bottom part of the order. Too many guys aren't giving you anything offensively. I know Jackie Bradley Jr. had a hit yesterday, squared up another ball. He's OPS 372, man. And that isn't the lowest.
No, it's not.
That's not his on base. That's not his slugging.
It's OPS.
That's his on base plus his slugging is 372. If an outfielder slugged 372, if they slugged 372, you'd say, man, send that guy back to Omaha. That is Jackie Bradley Jr.'s on-base percentage plus his slugging percentage.
And somehow,
not the worst in yesterday's lineup. Not the worst. Because Michael Massey's little hot streak in recent days has only served to elevate his on-base plus slug to 368. Still waiting on that first walk.
Yeah, the batting average is still higher than the on-base percentage for Michael Massey.
Still waiting for that first free pass for the Mass Man. 69 plate appearances and a not nice 0.0% walk rate. That's tough.
I believe after yesterday, it's up to 125 plate appearances in a row without a walk for Michael Massey since he last walked last September.
That's tough.
And that's who he is. But and that's, I think, when we like for you when you look at this Royals lineup. For some, like, is there part of this when you go into the back part of it? When you go to the guys like Kyle Isbell, like Michael Massey, it's some of those guys, hitting, 6 through 9, 5 through 9 occasionally, depending on how things go. Do you think that there is any sort of I guess, like, hope that they can actually start becoming semi-competent bats? Or are the Royals really in a spot to where until some of these bats in the minor leagues, or unless they go make a move, they're just going to have to live with the fact that the back half of their order is just bordering on unplayable?
Look, you've got to find out at this point whether guys like Michael Massey and Kyle Isbell can hit big league pitching. You've got to find out if there's, I don't even want to call it a renaissance. If Hunter Dozier can recapture his 2019 form because you owe him so much money. And you've got to deal with the sophomore growing pains of Bobby Witt Jr., who's been an above-average offensive contributor, but still a guy getting on base a ton. He hit for power, and the average is up over 250. And he's cut the strikeouts, but he's still not getting on base a ton, still not walking a ton, and the batting average not high enough to support a good OP on-base percentage. Melendez is a guy that's interesting to me because he's hitting the ball a lot harder than he did last year, like a lot harder and a lot more often, but still only getting a $1.84 because the strikeouts are too high. And to me, I don't know what you see when you watch this whole, because you have a more critical eye, more of an investment in this. When I watch Melendez, he looks like a young guy trying to do too much. And I think that more than anything else, more than, the league's got it figured out or whatever it is. Because his walk rate right now exactly the same as it was last year. Like dead on the number 2/10 of a point. He is walking at the same level. So I still think his knowledge of the strike zone, understanding of what is a strike, what is not a strike, I still think that's there for him. I feel like he's beating himself trying to do a little bit too much, trying to overcompensate for a slow start and for the team slow start, for the lineup slow start. And I think in recent games, before he tweaked the back, we were really starting to see it come to him. And I still think that Melendez is going to end up with some good numbers by the time the year is out. But yeah, that's the guy they need to get going, because there's got to be that connective tissue between the leadoff hitter and then your middle of the order guys. Like Pasquantino's raking, but there's nobody for him to drive in. Salvador Perez is always going to be a great RBI guy. There's nobody on base in front. So Melendez to me is a guy that if they can get him clicking, that offense is going to look a lot better, even with the chaff at the bottom 4 spots in the lineup.
I'm right there with you. When I watch MJ Melendez, his entire problem now is just contact. It's weird to say, but like that's it. Because you're right. His walk percentage is identical. He has not lost an understanding of the strike zone necessarily. And I think it's a good way to put it and I think that really applies to so many of these young guys right now, is everyone's trying to do it all themselves. And I think MJ Melendez is a very good example of that, because with his eye, with his understanding of the strike zone, there is far too often I watch MJ Melendez on pitches on the fringes that for so many at-bats I'll see him take. And then when you really need him to take, he doesn't. And I find myself just yelling at my screen, MJ, you know better than that. And it's because he does. And I think there's a lot of times that he is pressing, which leads to the swing and miss in his game right now. Like, MJ Melendez should not lead your team as a batter in strikeouts. But for the Royals, he currently does. His 30 strike, even for all of Michael Massey's woes, and the fact that man had a stretch where he could not hit water if he fell out of a boat. He does not lead this team in strikeouts. It is MJ Melendez's 30. He has 30 strikeouts this year. And that is the most outlier thing that I do think will get fixed with some time. Because you're right, we started to see it before here at the back. I mean, we saw it last night with his first at bat. Took some good stuff and then just laced a quality hit back up the middle. And I think we're going to get to see more of that because I think you're right. MJ Melendez, if he can get going, that's a 260, 270 bat that has like 30 homer potential in it. With his eye, that could really turn your offense around.
Like he's not a finished product, and I don't think anybody's acting like he is. He's 24. He's not a finished product because there are going to be some ebbs and flows. Sometimes that sophomore year can be. That's why the phrase sophomore slump exists. It can be a hard year with the league adjusting to you, and then you've got to make that adjustment back. Bobby Witt Jr. is going through the same thing. He's not a finished product. As much as a certain blog just thinks he's Eric Hosmer as a hitter and forever going to be Eric Hosmer as a hitter, would like to have you believe. I'm kind of like Royals Review does good work, but I thought they were smart with that one. It's the disappointing part is other than some signs of life for Olivares, and I mean, signs of life for him are great. It's still a below average bat right now. He's 27 years old. He's in that position. There's but so much you can do with that. Kyle Isbell's gotten chance after chance. It hasn't clicked for him yet. It has obviously not clicked for Michael Massey. It does not look like there's anything that Hunter Dozier can recapture from that promising 2019 form, which a lot of people put up. Like 2019, we talk about 2020 being alive. This was a 60-game COVID year.
2019 was
alive. They were playing with Titleist Pro V1s. Hunter Dozier not an elite power hitter. It turns out outside of the year they were using the Pro V1s. So that's what's frustrating because like for now there's no obvious fit. You have to let it ride with the younger guys like Massey and Isbell or the Albatross contracts like Dozier. And there may not be. I mean, JJ Piccolo's a Dayton Moore guy, and Dayton Moore always talks about, hey, 40 games. We need 40 games to find out what kind of team we really have. I don't think we need that long with this group to know it's a pretty stinky offense, but we're 17 games away. We're 2.5 weeks away, baseball, from maybe seeing real substantive change in the composition of this lineup.
That change, honestly, could not come fast enough. And I'm usually a patient guy. That's kind of what I try to be especially when it comes to the Royals, but there's a lot I've already probably learned about this team that I think I'm pretty solid that when we get to the 40-game mark, the opinion's just going to be further confirmed when we get to that point. We're going to take our first time out here on Mic'd Up, and when we come back, we're already getting rumors of a team trading back in the draft. Why would the Cardinals move out of 3? We'll take a little bit of a look at that coming up next. So, Dan, the NFL draft obviously has been with us tonight. We're going to spend a lot of time talking the NFL draft today, and we're going to break down our predictions, your mock draft, all that coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. But there's a report that came out this morning that apparently the Arizona Cardinals have received multiple offers for the number 3 pick to trade back. In short, thinking about this all, and we'll get into this more, it has to be for a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
It has to be someone's wanting to get a QB.
Yeah, I would think so because I think everybody thinks that Indianapolis is going to take a quarterback before. And if you want to make sure you get a guy before Indianapolis maybe takes the guy you want, if you really want Will Levis or you really want Anthony Richardson, 3's the spot because Arizona's not going to take quarterback.
No.
They had Kyler Murray.
Yeah, Steve Keim made that call.
Yeah, even though he's going to be out for the first half of next year, they're not taking a quarterback. So if you're the Cardinals, you can trade back. You can put yourself in position to add to what on paper might be the worst defense in the league or one of the worst defenses in the league. They got no talent on that side of the ball. They're terrible at corner. They could stand to trade down, maybe take a look at like a Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. That just makes a lot of sense, I think, for Arizona to stack some draft capital. And then, somebody else is going to jump up there and I think get a QB.
That's what I was thinking as well. And my biggest thing for Arizona, at least, is they need defenders. And then I saw this earlier as well. Can anyone name one single defender on the Arizona defensive line?
No.
Not a one.
I
thought about that today. I was reading a mock draft where Arizona State put to Will Anderson. There was like, can you name one? I was like, no, I can't. I can't name a single one. We'll get more to the NFL draft coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. But coming up next, the NBA playoffs had an interesting moment last night. And we're going to hear from Giannis Antetokounmpo and his thoughts on failure in sports. Welcome back into Mic'd Up with Fulton and Dan here on 580 WIBW Draft Day Edition. I wonder how much we'll get good background shots of Union Station behind the main podium area tonight. So I know they got like that big stage built up and it's blocking a bunch of stuff, but I wonder how much you can actually still get the visual of that iconic Union Station facade.
Do wonder, yeah, what are the exterior KC shots going to be of? Are we going to see the plaza? I bet we do. Do we get an 18th and Vine shot? Do we get a drone shot of Arrowhead in the empty parking lot? The Western Auto sign going to make an appearance? I feel like those are props.
They should be
able to put some action on some props. What do we think? Minus 135 for the Western Auto sign?
What are the odds that the Western Auto sign is shown first among KC landmarks for the draft?
I don't love it first, but definitely I think we're going to see it tonight.
Oh, probably.
At some point over the next 3 for sure.
We'll do a lot of draft coverage today. We're also going to have some live coverage of the NFL draft coming up tonight on our YouTube channel. Jake, Dan, myself, Brendan, we will all be filtering in and out throughout the night, giving you our live thoughts on the first round of the NFL draft and the various picks being made.
So I will be in the sports dungeon at Lucero Manor. Where will you be live from tonight?
I will be live from the bedroom I use as an office at my own apartment.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't have a fancy name to it.
Caster's Corner?
You know what? That's a good one. Live from Caster's Corner.
Fulton's Flat? Let's workshop this.
We can workshop a little bit of something there to it.
Text line, YouTube comments. Help my guy Fulton out.
What are we going to call my office that I have at home?
What do we call Fulton's lair, draft headquarters? What do we call it? Remember that picture? It was the COVID draft. And they had that picture of Cliff Kingsbury.
Yep.
In that ridiculous house, ridiculously expensive house.
Just chilling, feet up, vibing.
The TV was a acre away from him, and
makes no sense.
No, it looked bad.
Why was it that far away? It's terrible design.
Dave Gettleman's little apartment looked like a adult film set.
It did. Of course, the big thing of Bill Belichick and his dog sitting in a chair.
That was fun. The COVID draft was a good time. I remember people complaining in 2020, man, the picks are taking forever. Fine.
It's hilarious content still.
No, all we got is time, man. All we had.
That's all we had.
Yeah, all we had at that time was time. So tonight I will be hoping that the draft carries on expeditiously. I do not want to wait until there's another prop for you. Over under, because each team gets 10 minutes.
Yep.
On the clock.
31 teams.
The broadcast starts at 7.
Yeah.
They're gonna play the national anthem. This is a conference call, and we play like that. That's what the draft is, right? At the end of the day,
all the draft is a teleconference.
Yes,
it is. All it is.
It's a conference call, and and they do the national anthem. And look, that's not me being anti-anthem. That's me being,
anti-time wasting.
Yes, let's just get on with this. Like, it's not the Super Bowl.
No, they want it to be.
So yeah, let's just get on with it. It used to be like Paul Tagliabue would go to the microphone and say, all right, welcome to the draft.
Let's go.
It starts. And then there'd be 15 minutes, and that was forever too. But okay, let's say 11:15 Central, over under, Chiefs make their first pick.
7 o'clock start, 11:15 Central. I'm going to be the optimist and take under. I'm going to be an optimist. I don't think I'm correct. I think this is a late night.
We have a long night, man.
Long night of us. Well, we have 2 opening entries into what to call my my streaming area for tonight. Our good man Mark goes with Fulton's Funhouse.
Fulton's Funhouse is strong. I like that.
That's strong.
Yeah,
I get some fun with that.
That's good.
And then, of course, our man Vance with Fortress Fulton.
Fortress Fulton is also very good.
I like the alliteration we're going for here.
Yeah, alliteration is good. Like, I don't love, like, the Lucero lair. I've been calling my apartment / domicile Lucero Manor since I started living on my own. And it was just always a goofy joke to me, because usually I was like, it was funny to me to describe my 1-bedroom apartment as
a manor.
Yeah,
of course.
It was funny to me. And now I live in a real house with my wife, and it's still funny to me. So Lucero,
it's much more of a manor than what you used to live in.
Yeah, damn right. Lucero Manor it is.
Yeah, nothing I've ever lived in can be described as a manor. Trust me on that one. We got a lot to get to coming up on today's show. We're going to do a lot of NFL draft talk coming up in the 1 o'clock and the 2 o'clock hour. But here, we don't talk a lot of NBA on this show, partly because there's not a big NBA team in the area. But last night, both the games and the post games were fascinating for the NBA. And where I really want us to start, and we've talked about this a little bit, the Milwaukee Bucks are eliminated. They were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They are out in 5 games to the 8th seeded Miami Heat, who are the first play-in team to ever win a first-round series after being a play-in team. Which it was a shock to see it happen, because the Bucks have been playing so well. And
they were up by 16.
They were. That's
going
the
into the fourth quarter. They had no business losing that game, and
not a one.
They didn't even get a game-tying shot off at the end of overtime, because they just didn't get a shot off. They didn't get a shot off. The entire game last night kind of, to me, encapsulated the series for Milwaukee. Was just a team that has won a championship recently that just did not look like they either A, knew what they were doing, or B, were scared out of their mind every second of the game. Yeah, they definitely shook. Which is crazy. And it led to the post game, which has been making the rounds today. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the star NBA star, really, but obviously star player for the Bucks. 2-time MVP, NBA champion, all the great accolades. You know, one of the best players playing right now. He was asked by a reporter if this season was a failure. Is what he asked. Is this season a failure? And that's what I'm most fascinated by. And he gave a far more thoughtful response. And I think you and I, Dan, talked a little bit, before the show, a more thoughtful response than questions like that usually garner. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be very interesting seeing forward is. But here's what Giannis Antetokounmpo had to say yesterday being asked about if this season's a failure for them.
You asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay. Do you get a promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Yes or no? No. Every year you work towards something, towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able, provide the house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success, and if you've never, I don't want to make it personal. So there's always steps to it, Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years was a failure? That's what you're telling me? No, I'm asking you a question. Yes or no?
No, I mean, I don't think so.
Okay, exactly. So why are you asking me that question? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports. You know, there's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. Some days it's not your turn. And that's what sports is about. You don't always win. Some other people's going to win. And this year, somebody else is going to win. Simple as that. We're going to come back next year, try to be better, try to build good habits, try to play better, not have a 10-day stretch with playing bad basketball, you know, and hopefully we can win a championship. So 50 years from 1971 to 2021 that we didn't win a championship, it was 50 years of failures? No, it was not. It was steps to it, you know, and we were able to win one. Hopefully we can win another one.
I've seen players asked for a season's failures a lot, and it's a question that is posed in the sports universe after teams fall short of what we all expect them to do. We ask it a lot. And I think Giannis gave just such a fascinating answer in that moment that was very emotional, obviously, of, yeah, we obviously didn't get what we wanted to do, but just because we don't win a championship every year does not mean we failed. And I think that's a fascinating perspective.
Perspective is a good word for it. You know, sports are a binary at the end of the day, right? We keep score and you win or you lose. And when the goal is to win and you don't win, then you've failed to reach your goal. There's winning and there's losing, there's success and there's failure. And the failure of a team like the Bucks, number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, best record in the NBA, to make it out of the first round, that is certainly a more acute failure than, say, the failure of, to use another Eastern Conference team, the Brooklyn Nets, to advance out of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different level of failure. Like the Royals failing to reach the playoffs this year is a different level of failure because you have to weigh the expectations and the actual potential of each team involved. So in that sense, Giannis is probably not saying what people want to hear him say, what a fan might want to hear him say, what like Shaquille O'Neal kind of pushed back on him on the Inside the NBA post game to say, no, man, like you had a chance to win a championship this year. Chances that don't often come around in sports. And if you do not do that when you have the opportunity to do that, then yeah, that's a failure. But what Giannis seems to understand, and I think that this is the kind of perspective that you'd want your kids to have. This is the kind of perspective that we try and teach young people, whether as parents, whether as youth sports coaches, that sometimes are not your time. Some days are not your days, and some games and moments and championships are not yours to be won. They belong to someone else. You got outplayed. You got beat. Sometimes you get beat. And if your only perspective on that is, I failed, then I think you've lost something more than just a game or a championship opportunity. If your perspective is, as Giannis's is, this failure is a step towards our next success. This failure of mine, and let's make no mistake about it, we like Giannis, like generally like the sporting public. Giannis has a pretty high approval rating, I would say, among people who...
very personable, good player.
He's got a great story. Yeah. He seems like a pretty jovial guy, has one of the great tweets of all time when he talked about trying a smoothie for the first time. It's such a good tweet. I just tasted for the first time in my life a smoothie. He said smoothie. He only put 1 O in it. And his response was, God bless America. One of my favorite tweets by an athlete ever. He's got
it's top tier, man.
Got a wholesome public image. He made a Disney movie about his life. Like there's a high level of appreciation, I think, generally speaking, for Giannis, even among non-NBA fans who know who he is, people that don't follow the sport closely but know who Giannis is, that would give a solid seal of approval to Giannis, just in general. So we like him. And man went 10 of 23 in the free throw line last night in a game his team had to win to avoid being eliminated by the number 8 seed, which is only the 6th time and only the 4th time in a non-lockout year, and I believe only the third time in a best of 7 in a non-lockout year where a number 8 seed has beaten a number 1 seed. This is like a historic collapse. Playoff. It is as failures go, this one is fairly large scale, and Giannis has to wear it. He has to be responsible for it. But for Giannis, again, his perspective is, yes, I failed. Yes, we failed. But this is something we can use as a step towards our next success. It's like that old, I'm sure you saw it. I'm sure it hung in some teacher's office, some coach's office, that old Michael Jordan poster, right?
Yep.
About how many game-winning shots he missed, about how many times his team missed the playoffs, about the years his team didn't win a championship. He's the quote, I failed over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. This idea that by not acknowledging the failure, he's, I don't know, somehow less competitive. He somehow wants it less. That doesn't wash with me. Yeah. I think he's got the proper perspective. I think he's got the perspective most people could use, and that we would hope that the children we raise or the children we coach maintain that perspective in their lives.
I think so too, and that's my big thing that I take away from hearing what he had to say is yeah, it's, and I've tried to have this perspective and try to help push this perspective a little bit more when it comes to guys when they fail. Just because a guy is not outwardly, throwing over tables and screaming at people when they lose does not mean they like to lose. Like, Giannis not saying outwardly to that question, yes, we failed. Yes, this season's a big failure. Yes, it's awful and I'm upset. It doesn't mean that he's not feeling those emotions. But I think it's right that that's perspective we should be teaching people, because to put it in even a different context, with the way the Chiefs are playing right now, we talk constantly on these programs about, well, if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, is the season bad? Jake and I talked about that.
Championship or bust.
Yeah, Jake and I talked about a bunch leading up to the Super Bowl, getting there and winning it this year for the Chiefs was, if they didn't make it to Arizona in February of this year, if they had not done it, would this season have been a failure? And I think sometimes it does a disservice to pieces of a season and pieces of an overall accomplishment to put so much weight on one individual thing that is overall very hard to obtain. But I also think it is correct, and as we know a little bit, you're the best record in the NBA. No one wants to see the Eastern Conference. You got to get out of the first round. So it's that weird thing of, it's a beautiful perspective for Giannis to have about, failures can lead to successes and all that great stories. But it's also fair to say your team also did flat out fail this year. Because you're you noted, third time in a best of 7 in a non-lockout year.
Yeah.
First time in 12 years.
So it's happened 6 times. I think it was still best of 5 in 1999.
I think it was too.
Which was a lockout year. The Knicks won as an 8 seed. Actually went to the finals that year as an 8 seed. But,
wow.
Lockout year. It was half a season.
Yeah.
8 seed Nuggets beat the 1 seed Sonics in 94. That was a best of 5. That was the first time it ever happened. Then the other times you had Grizzlies over Spurs in 2011.
Yeah.
You had Sixers over Bulls in 2012, lockout year, and D-Rose ripped up his knee in that series, and the Bulls were without their best player in that series. And
still painful.
Fair to note that the Bucks, for 2 full games and a big chunk of a third game, were without Giannis, who got
important to note.
Got injured in game 1, only played 11 minutes, missed game 2, which the Bucks won without him, and then missed game 3, which the Bucks lost. But they also lost game 1, where he only played 11 minutes. So maybe this series is different if Giannis is healthy, if Giannis plays the whole series, perhaps. But this is, and should be acknowledged, can be acknowledged as a failure, as a disappointment. But I'll bet that Giannis will handle this failure, and that his teammates will go along and handle the failure in a much healthier fashion than a lot of people do. I know there are people out there who say, well, Michael Jordan never would have. Michael Jordan would have said, yes, it was a failure. Michael Jordan was a psychopath.
Yeah, Michael Jordan had so many great qualities about him. But let's also remember, in terms of competitiveness, Michael Jordan's a nut job. The level of competitive that Michael Jordan is, let's be very brutally honest here, is kind of not healthy. Like the amount of that, we talk about all the time, they're athletes that like to create the slights against themselves to give them that edge.
Mm-hmm.
That's both a positive and a negative trait, in my opinion. Because sometimes it's like, my goodness, what goes on in that head of yours?
Like, other than the winning, what was pleasant about being Michael Jordan's teammate?
Yeah,
like,
honestly.
He took all your money in cards. He made fun of you relentlessly. He challenged you and punched you in the face if you were Steve Kerr. Or who was the other guy he punched? Brad Sellers, I think he punched.
I'm not confident
I think
on
it
that
was.
one.
I'm pretty sure it was Brad Sellers.
Yeah.
What was pleasant about being like, I'd rather be Giannis's teammate than Michael Jordan's teammate.
Yeah.
Even if I only got one ring to Jordan's 6, I'd rather play with Giannis.
The winning
play with Jordan.
is probably everything around the winning is probably more enjoyable.
Yes, 100%. I'd rather be a Giannis. I'd rather raise a Giannis. I'd rather be around people that maintain that level of perspective. But because and we could say that about Giannis because he has one. He
has a ring.
If we looked at his career, his CV, and said, well, it's amazing and it's great that he has this perspective, but maybe that's why he hasn't won anything. Well, he has won something.
Yeah.
He's got a ring. He's got 2 MVPs. He's at the peak of his profession. And maybe that's why we ask so much of him, because we look at him as the best player in basketball. That's a torch that has been carried by guys like Michael Jordan. And so it's natural to try and, I think, compare the two a little bit. And when you find them wanting, just like we found LeBron James, I think, collectively a little bit wanting when we compared him to Jordan in that way. I think that with Giannis, it will be, again, something that he rebounds from just fine. I'm not too worried about him long term. I think he'll be just fine. And I think that this is the kind of thing that happens in sports. It's just the way it goes. And somebody with his perspective as a champion, as somebody who made 17 out of 20 free throws in a closeout finals game, to miss 13 of 23 free throws in a game 5 in a first round a couple of years later, you gain that understanding of, man, today wasn't my day. This year wasn't my year, but I'll get better from it. I'll grow from it.
It's like he basically said, maybe a different time they don't play 10 days of bad basketball. That's very like, it just happens. A couple other results from the NBA playoffs last night. One that's particularly important for me and a bet that I've going on with one Jake Fulton. The Memphis Grizzlies actually showed up like they actually cared to play a game of basketball last night.
They did.
And it made me so happy. They cared.
I'm pulling for you, big man.
They cared.
I don't want to see you have to mow the lawn like 8 times this summer.
Jake has said, I will say, as much as Jake always likes to point out that we're going to get to a 4-piece if the Lakers can knock off the Grizzlies. He has told me he has been tempted to get it all the way up to 8 before he stops doing these, which means I technically would have one more chance. I don't know if I'd take that. I think at 4, I might have to cut my losses.
I'm going to tell you right now, while we have this opportunity to share the airspace together, Fulton, that I need to know the day. I need to know one of the days you're going to mow Jake's lawn, because I'm coming. I'm bringing a cooler, couple of beers. I'm going to bring a lawn chair. I'm going to put my feet up on his patio. I'm going to watch you mow that lawn, man. Not because I have any kind of ill feelings towards you. I do not. Quite the opposite. In fact, I just want to see it happen. I want to witness that history.
That's very fair. I don't blame you at all. That'll do for this hour of Mic'd Up. Coming up next, time to talk some Chiefs draft here on Mic'd Up. It's time for hour number 2 of Mic'd Up with Fulton and Dan here on 580 WIBW. As always, we thank you all for joining along as our draft day edition of the show continues here on 580 WIBW. And that's what we'll do here in the 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock hours. A lot of draft talk coming up as the NFL draft kicks off tonight. 7 o'clock is the time for round 1 to officially begin this evening from Kansas City and Union Station. We've already seen plenty of tweets and comments about the draft setup and people beginning to mill about, including this. And this is not where I anticipated beginning here, but I now must bring it up. Dan, did you see Dan Orlovsky tweeting that he apparently didn't know that burnt ends were a thing?
Dan Orlovsky has the palate of like a 6-year-old.
It's awful.
I saw like 2 months ago, he says, you know, it's a game changer in tacos, cucumbers. And I almost blocked him on Twitter and called the police. If you try and put a cucumber in my taco, I am reporting you to the FBI.
Dan's throwing hands. I would agree with you. Who put a cucumber on a taco?
His food takes suck. So I guess I'm not surprised he didn't know burnt ends were a thing. But I hope he enjoyed them, preferably without cucumbers.
Because unsurprisingly, because the draft's in Kansas City, all they were talking about Kansas City is barbecue. It's apparently the only thing you can talk about when you do a thing in Kansas City. But yeah, members of the NFL Live team all tried some barbecue today, to which Dan Orlovsky had some, to which he quote tweeted the tweet about the video of it with, "I did not know Burt Ensworth thing." To which I had the exact same note as you, just like, my God, this man's food tastes like a 5-year-old. Hilarious. But I can't get over that. It just drives me absolutely crazy. NFL draft tonight from Kansas City. Coming up here in the 1 o'clock hour, we're going to look at the Chiefs draft scenarios and more specifically, what players would trigger each of these different opportunities and actions. We've talked a lot about what the numbers would look like if the Chiefs traded up or if they traded back. What picks would they be getting? We've never broken into what players would trigger them making that action. So we'll get that as well. Everyone loves the list. Our favorite draft moments. They could either be because they're funny, they're memorable, or because how shocking they were. But our favorite draft moments that everyone loves to list today. In the bottom of the hour, Adam Teicher of ESPN will join us as well. Get his thoughts on the NFL draft, who he thinks the Chiefs are taking, just the state of the Chiefs right now. And of course, the 2 o'clock hour, we're going to give you our draft predictions and break down Dan's mock draft as well. Of course, a little bit of start bench cut for this afternoon as well. You can join in on the show as always on the text line 785-272-9429 or on the comment section of our YouTube live stream. Go to youtube.com. Sports1 580 is our YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it. And you can jump in with the live comment section as well, including our buddy Vance adding in another option for what to call my draft space, my internet space when we do our streams.
Your draft headquarters tonight.
This for Citadel Caster.
Okay, that's not so bad.
That's not too bad. A citadel is an interesting way to describe what I have going on, but it's something about that. It's interesting. The Vance also asked, how big is Jake's lawn? So Jake has told me, and I've seen it because I've picked up Jake at his house and we've done different things. It's not that big. Now his backyard, I think, is where he said is most of the real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably where the bulk of my work is. If I had to mow his lawn.
It's not.
I've mowed bigger.
A lot. No, I've been to Jake's house. It's not a lot.
No.
It's not like he's got like 12 acres. He needs you to come clear, or like anything like that.
No.
It's
not bad.
It's a typical, I would say, average to maybe slightly above residential front and backyard.
I would agree with that. And listen, when I have to go home to Wichita, my dad's house, and then we also own the house next door. It used to be my grandma's house, and it stayed in the family. I've had to mow both of those yards at once. I've had to do it multiple days where I've mowed 2 yards. So I'm not a slouch in this department, which is why I'm not, terrified of losing here. It's a little bit of manual labor, but
I hate mowing the lawn.
See, I don't mind it. I really don't.
It's one of my least favorite chores to go do. And like once you start doing it, it's fine. You get done. It looks nice. And part of the, one of the pitfalls, my wife and I at our house, we've got like 2 huge trees. We got a huge tree in front of our house, a huge tree in the backyard. And those trees are old, and so they'll drop branches. So you got to clear the branches before you mow. And that's a pain. That's a pain in the backside. I don't enjoy that part of it.
That's fair. Do you have mowing shoes now?
No, I mow in flip-flops, which you're not supposed to, but I do it anyway.
No, Dan. That's so dangerous.
Oh, yeah, super dangerous.
Don't mow in open-toed shoes.
Super aware. No, like you should wear, like, theoretically, I should probably wear, like, soccer shin guards and, like, the whole thing. Like, protective eyewear. But no, I've been doing it. I mow in flip-flops.
You mow in flip-flops.
This is quite an admission. You're drawing things out of me. My
Dan's gonna go to work one day missing a toe, and I'm not gonna be surprised anymore.
My audience is not listening. So
That's true. This is not your audience.
I can admit things that I wouldn't like. I might get a phone call if I admitted this sometime between 3 and 6, and maybe my dad would be listening while he works from home back in Colorado, saying, "Son, get a brain."
Absolutely, just fantastic. I don't have a segue or anything after that. That is top tier. With the NFL draft tonight, the Kansas City Chiefs are set to pick at pick 31. I know Jake and I have discussed this a lot. I know you and Brendan have talked about it on 580 Sports Talk a little bit. The Chiefs have been talked about trading up in the draft, and we've all discussed different spots. Jake and I think kind of settled on about pick 23 is but the highest they reasonably could shoot to, is our opinion. I don't know if you and Brendan came to an idea of where you think they can get to. But talked about them trading up what it would take. We talked about trading out of the first round, though. Of course, a lot of people don't want to see it. They want to see the Chiefs make a pick in Kansas City. We talked about, where they could trade back to and fall back to. And then what would happen if they stand pat? And what I want to get to here is for at least trading up specifically, which is something we've talked a bunch about and keeps floating around with the Chiefs and people saying there's a good chance the Chiefs do trade up in this draft. Thinking about it, beyond just what picks are you giving up, is there any specific player or players that if you think they fall to a certain range, they essentially kind of like Trent McDuffie last year, he falls to the range that Brett Veach is going to get ultra aggressive and go, we're going to go get our guy. Is there a player or players to you that really to you scream, if these guys fall, Brett Veach is going to go get his dude?
So I've kind of settled on the idea that if the Chiefs trade up, I think they're doing it to go get a wide receiver. I think that the more I run through the different scenarios for this draft, it feels like there could be a real run on the high-end wide receiver talent that could start as early as like number 12 with Houston's second pick or 13 with Green Bay. Because for me, there are 6 guys. There's the 2 big tight ends, Mayer from Notre Dame, Kincaid from Utah. And then there are the pass catchers. There's Smith and Jigba from Ohio State, Jordan Addison at USC, Quentin Johnson, TCU, Zay Flowers. For me, those are the 6 guys that I think if the Chiefs drafted them, or any team really, that's a day one nailed on starter. I don't know about that there's certainly some intriguing guys are going to be around day 2. And maybe the Chiefs lay in the cut and late day 2, there's somebody there like Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss, or maybe Jalen Hyatt falls from Tennessee, maybe A.T. Perry from Wake Forest. Like there are some guys who I think are intriguing in the second and third round, much like I thought Sky Moore was an intriguing second round pick. But if the Chiefs want to go get a guy who can start and produce, I don't think he's going to be there at 31. I think if the Chiefs are really, really in love with the idea of a Zay Flowers or a Quentin Johnson or even a Jordan Addison, then they're going to have to move up, I think, to get that guy. So if we hear about the Chiefs trading, my gut reaction tonight, however high up they go, and I think the limit is probably in the high 20, in the upper 20s. I don't think they'll move up like 3 picks for one of these guys. I could see them jumping into the low 20s. But if I hear the Chiefs have made a trade and they're trading up, my gut instinct is going to be this is for a wide receiver.
That's where I've been at as well. When I've thought about it is if the Chiefs trade up, it's to get a pass catcher. If they're willing to stand pat, to me, that means we're just going to take whatever's best available between the edges, the tackles, the receivers, if there are any. But if they are trading up, that to me also does speak they're going to go get a pass catcher. And looking at these pass catchers in the draft, Dalton Kincaid at the tight end spot, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, is there any one of those guys that to you really sends off the signal flare of if they're in range, it would be not necessarily wrong for the Chiefs not to make a move? Because then the Chiefs are in the benefit of the doubt for their draft strategy. Well, they've been drafting lately. But where you think it is almost a bit of a mistake for the Chiefs not to try and get aggressive. Is any of those pass catchers a guy you go, yeah, if he hits the range, Brett Veach needs to be like banging down someone's door to get a deal done?
Well, see, for me, it wouldn't be a wide receiver. It would be a tight end. For me, it would be if Dalton Kincaid is still there when the draft hits number 20, I think you go get Dalton Kincaid. I think that's the next Travis Kelce. Like, I'll go ahead and say it. I think he's that guy. I think his ceiling is that high, and I think that there is an opportunity in this draft to go get the next great player at a position where you have been fortunate enough to have generationally great players really for the better part of the last 30 years. I mean, it wasn't a direct passing of the torch from Tony Gonzalez to Travis Kelce.
It was as close to direct can be.
There's some years in between, like Tony Moiaki, that didn't quite work out.
Anthony Fasano.
but you know what I mean, right? Like,
yeah, I get you.
There's been a really high standard of play at that position, and over the last 25 years, let's call it, of Kansas City Chiefs football. I don't remember exactly when Gonzalez broke into the league. 97?
I think.
Something like that, late 90s.
It was late 90s because my entire childhood, I remember Tony Gonzalez. I'm born in 96.
So, 25 odd years of elite Hall of Fame level tight end play, mostly for the Chiefs. And now you've got an opportunity to go get the next one, I think, in Dalton Kincaid. Because I think his skill set, his frame, and mostly his ability after the catch make him the most likely guy out of this group of tight ends. I think there are some like second, third round guys that are going to be good players. Tucker Kraft from North Dakota State, Sam Laporta from Iowa, I think is a solid prospect. And the hit rate on first round tight ends is not always, spectacular when you look at it historically. Like Kelsey was a third round guy. Rob Gronkowski was a second round guy. Some first round guys include Kyle Brady and, TJ Hawkinson, who's fine. Noah Fant was a first round tight end. He's fine. But you can still find some gems at that position later in the draft. But man, I am all about Dalton Kincaid. Like that is the guy I think that's the needle mover. The Chiefs could go more 21 personnel and just ruin defensive coordinators' lives, because now instead of having to account for one Travis Kelce, what if you had to account for two? I just want you to imagine the scenario in which that uncoverable monster with the great hand
has a twin.
Yes. Now there's two. They got two.
Wait, there's two of them.
Brendan and I talked about this like a month ago. The best, most productive year of Tom Brady's career as a passer.
It's when he had the double tight ends.
Was when he had the two tight ends set operating at full capacity with Rob Gronkowski and that other guy.
That other fella.
That other guy. And
who had some off the football field stuff that was real bad.
And they don't that Patriots team didn't have like a big body outside receiver, but they didn't need one. They threw to Wes Welker underneath 150 times. So I think it fits. I think it makes a lot of sense. I know we haven't heard a lot of Kincaid to the Chiefs, like scuttlebutt rumor or anything like that, but that's the player. If the Chiefs move up, that would be number one on my personal wish list.
I'm right there with you 100%. I've been I don't often put a guy as like my, we talk about draft crushes a lot around this time of year. That's a great phrase that's used. Our good friend Seth Kaiser does an entire series about it. That's what Dalton Kincaid's meaning for the Chiefs this entire draft process, because one, and I take this inspiration from you and Brendan, I've transitioned from thinking the Chiefs need wide receivers to they need pass catchers. They need guys to catch the football, no matter what their position is. They need guys to catch the football. And Dalton Kincaid would cause, and the thing is, he can be an inline tight end. He'll see a lot of work at Utah on the outside, lining up at that X spot a little bit and doing all those different things. So it wouldn't be crazy to use them in such these interesting and intricate ways. And no, if the Chiefs traded up and could get Dalton Kincaid, I cannot lie to you, the level of happiness I would be feeling as a Chiefs fan would just go completely through the roof if that would be the guy that they try to trade up for. Trading back. The one negative, and it's negative only in optics, is you would not make a pick in Kansas City on the first round.
Yeah.
Which, when's the next time you're ever going to host the draft in Kansas City? If this is like a once-in-a-lifetime type of thing. Do you think that has a lot of bearing on Brett Veach, on if he would take any calls? If he got the right call and the right offer, would he be held back by, well, man, I want to give our fans a pick in the first round?
I don't think so at all. I don't think it'd be a factor at all. In fact, Mel Kiper, in his final mock draft today, suggests that the Chiefs will trade back. He actually has been trading back 5 slots with the Rams, who jump into the first round to get Hendon Hooker. I don't know how realistic that all is, but he has suggested that as a possibility. I think if they trade back, it will be because they see a glut at a position that maybe is a bit of a surprise. Like maybe those wide receivers all are dropping, or maybe the edge rushers are dropping and the draft is coming to them at that position. And they trade back. I think if they trade back, I'll say this. I think if they're trading up at the pass catcher, they trade back, I think it's for an edge.
Okay. I could see that a lot. And if we know one thing about Brett Veach, he seems to be very, very willing and open to just letting the board speak to him. In that he does not go into it seems like Brett Veach really goes into the draft with a set in stone plan. He has an idea of what he wants the team to do, but if the board's falling a different way, he has shown a very positive ability to just adapt to what's happening. I don't think the Chiefs went into last year thinking they were going to trade up a bunch with one of their 2 first-round picks. But then the board saw Trent McDuffie fall, and Brett Veach was like, well, this is what we need to do. And they made a move and made it figured out. But I wouldn't be surprised. That's been my thought on the trading back would be, if a bunch of guys are falling and Brett thinks stacking some picks together, you could still get good value and then get something else in where you can kind of pick a little deeper. I think that would work. And I'll be honest with you, in that 31 spot, and Hendon Hooker specifically, the weird buzz around that keeps happening, and people really want that fifth-year option. Chiefs can move back. Someone gets Hendon Hooker, and the Chiefs get extra picks. I think there would be a subset of fans that are bummed that they would not pick in the first round.
But it's got to be in Veach we trust, because the rings don't lie, right?
And that's the biggest thing I've been trying to preach a little bit is no matter what happens tonight, I'm going until it is stopped being proven right. I'm just going to assume Brett Veach is always making the right move, because last year's draft, I think, earned that man a large amount of cred for what he can try and do going forward. It's going to be interesting, but it should be a fun draft tonight for the Chiefs nonetheless, and we'll see what they end up doing. If it's moving up, moving back, whatever they do, it'll be very fluid, but hopefully a really great player can come to Kansas City. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, it's time for Everyone Loves the List here on Mic'd Up. Time for Everyone Loves the List here on Mic'd Up to continue with our draft theme we've had this week, with it being draft week. Dan and I's favorite draft moments. Dan, what is your number 4 favorite draft moment?
Number 4, on a personal level, it's the 2012 NFL draft. Everybody gave my beloved Seattle Seahawks like a F grade for that draft. They took Bruce Irvin in the first round, Bobby Wagner in the second round, Russell Wilson in the third round. Plus, they got 2 more guys, Jeremy Lane and J.R. Sweezy, who started for those Super Bowl teams. Kicked off the best decade plus of Seahawks football in history. So I'll always have a soft spot for that draft.
That is, you know what? Very understandable. For me, the COVID draft gave me a lot of fun stuff when watching it. It gave me entertainment. Number 4, Mike Vrabel's background of the 2 dudes standing behind him for part of the draft. Whoever was wearing the weird little like morph suit full thing going on, and it was just weird, and it gave me a good chuckle, and it's a very fond memory I have of this draft.
My number 3 memory is also from the COVID draft. Bill Belichick's dog.
Yes.
When they cut to Bill Belichick at his house, and he wasn't there, and the dog was sitting in the chair at the computer like he was making all the draft picks. It was very funny and also very adorable.
It is that moment is fantastic and hilarious, and I love every single minute of it. Number 3 for me, not funny but shocking, the Laramie Tunsil gas mask incident. It's a little funny.
It's a little funny.
It's a little funny. Also, just that was the first big draft thing. We're like, oh, what is happening? That's my number 3.
Number 2 for me, one of my earliest memories, 1995 draft, Jets fans chanting, Warren Sapp, Warren Sapp, when they were ready to draft at 9, and the Jets took Kyle Brady, tight end.
Oh,
Penn
poor
State.
Kyle Brady.
Kyle Brady had an okay career, but not a Hall of Fame career like Warren.
No, not at all. Number 2 for me from the COVID draft as well. The Vikings personnel laughing at the Eagles when they took Jalen Reagor. And then, Justin Jefferson was the next pick.
Number 1 for me, before the draft in 2017, I sat at that chair right across from Jake LeBon. And I said, on these airwaves, on 580 Sports Talk, I think tonight the Kansas City Chiefs are going to trade up for Patrick Mahomes. And they did. And then nothing's been the same since.
Number 1 for me is very simple. My favorite team traded to get Patrick Mahomes. I do not have a better draft memory, period, at all. Without a shadow of a doubt, there will never be a better draft memory for me than my team taking Patrick Mahomes. We're going to get a timeout. Adam Teicher joins next to toss Chiefs in the NFL draft. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton and Dan here with you this afternoon as Jake and Brendan are boots on the ground in Kansas City for round one of the NFL draft tonight from Kansas City. And speaking of Kansas City and the Kansas City Chiefs and the NFL draft, we now welcome in our good friend Adam Teicher, covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ESPN, does some fantastic work covering the Chiefs for a good long while. You can follow Adam on Twitter at Adam Teicher. Adam, it is draft day finally here. Are you excited that the draft has finally arrived in Kansas City?
Absolutely. It's a pretty cool event to see, going on in Kansas City right now. A lot of people are here, and the weather looks like it's going to be pretty good tonight. So, I'm really fired up for the city. It's a cool event.
Will you actually be at the draft stage tonight for the Chiefs? Will you be at Arrowhead Stadium? Where will you be posted up for draft coverage this evening?
Yeah, I'll be out at Arrowhead. That's one of the things about the draft is the draft, moves around, but the draft is never where they say it is. I mean, the draft is in all 32 cities. The party is just in Kansas City. That's where the commissioner is, and that's where the players have come into, and that's where they'll announce the picks from. But other than that, there's not a whole lot going on for the draft. They just sort of move the show to different cities. So all the teams basically stay at home. The Chiefs are going to be staying at their facility. So it is a pretty cool event, but it's not really, there's no there, if that makes any sense.
It we talk about we talk about a bunch between all of us here that the draft's basically just a teleconference. The NFL has made a teleconference their biggest thing, so it makes sense. Adam make a good point that everything kind of stays the same, and they just change up they gussy up the presentation depending on what city it is. Looking at the draft specifically, Chiefs are set to pick 31 tonight. First thing above all else, we keep talking about wide receiver, edge, offensive tackle. That seems to be, at least amongst most people, the general consensus of where the Chiefs might try and go with their first-round pick this evening. Of those three positions, is there anything you feel the Chiefs are more locked in on? Anything you've heard that they might be more locked in on? What are those three position groups do you think they will attack or most likely take in the first round tonight?
Well, a lot of it depends on how the board falls, and who goes ahead of them and who's there when they pick. And I'm not convinced the Chiefs are going to go, they're going to pick at any one of those three positions. They certainly could, because they could use some help at all three of those spots. But when you look at their roster, other than a couple places, I think we can agree the Chiefs don't need a quarterback. I think we can agree they're probably pretty solid at the interior of their offensive line. They're pretty good at linebacker. They don't need a lot of help there. But other than that, where could the Chiefs not use a good player? What position are the Chiefs so good at where a good player, the Chiefs would have no need for them to help them out? I think there's a lot of spots to keep an eye on. Running back is one. I mean, the Chiefs are really thin at running back right now. Isaiah Pacheco had a nice year last year, but mostly in the running game, still has a long way to go in the passing game, may or may not ever get there. What if the Chiefs like Jahmyr Gibbs and they see him out of Alabama, they see him sitting there at the end of the first round and they say, is that a guy who can make us a lot better? He doesn't maybe address the biggest needs that we have, but they can do that later in the draft. They can maybe do that in free agency with a guy who gets cut maybe after the draft, So they don't necessarily have to address those needs tonight. And I think it would be a mistake for them to just go get an offensive tackle, for instance, or go get a wide receiver or go get a pass rusher, even though they're maybe not thrilled with those guys. That's a mistake. That's where teams make mistakes in the draft. So I'm not sure that's where this draft is headed for the Chiefs. It certainly might be, but I'm kind of keeping my eyes open for a lot of different things here tonight.
In the idea of, keeping the open mind and maybe looking at more of these different positions and things like that, I think that's a good way to view it, Adam. With these position groups, I think you make a good point that there's only very few spots where the Chiefs couldn't use a really good player to help them. Is there any one position group, like say, like we were talking, wide receiver, edge, tackle, even running back, or even cornerback, let's say, is there any one of those position groups in the draft that you feel is especially deep where the Chiefs might be better off not necessarily forcing themselves to wait till later in the draft, but maybe we'd be better served trying to take advantage of that depth at a certain position group and attack it more in the second round or the third round because the position is just so deep in this year's draft?
Yeah, I think receiver is one of those positions that, there's a lot of good guys who will probably be available to them late in the second round when they pick, and maybe in the ballpark in terms of quality with what they might get in the first round. So, I think that is a spot that, they certainly could wait and still get a player who can help them out right away and certainly down the line as well. So, I do think there's, there are some spots like that, and receiver is certainly one of them.
There's been a lot of talk leading up to this draft and leading up to this day that the Chiefs could be one of those teams that could trade up in this year's draft to try and get somebody they really like. Brett Veach has a history of trading up, being aggressive in the draft, not, always being willing to take those actions if somebody falls that he really likes. Do you feel like drafting up is the most likely thing the Chiefs will do if they don't pick at 31? Or do you think that it is more likely, even if the draft is in Kansas City, that the more likely thing if they don't pick at 31 is to move back? What do you think is more likely if they don't pick at 31? Is it to go up or is it to go back in this year's draft?
Well, a lot of that depends on how their board is when their turn comes around. If there's no players that they really are thrilled with, I think they will look to trade down. And they would trade out of 31 if they thought that was best for the team. But, like you say, Brett Veach loves to trade up, and I would think that's the more likely scenario. I really do. I think that, Chiefs have 10 picks, which gives them some flexibility. They can move around a little bit if they want to. I don't expect a big jump, but they can move around a little bit. And, go get a player they want if that's what they decide to do. So it's going to be interesting to see, though. But I always think that Brett Veach is going to trade up because that's kind of been, as we know, his history.
Adam Teicher is our guest, covers the Chiefs for ESPN. You can follow Adam on Twitter at Adam Teicher. The draft always sometimes seems to involve actual players on current rosters being moved. The most notable last year was A.J. Brown being traded to the Eagles in the middle of the draft, and there's some veterans around the league who it could be rumbled that they might be part of a draft package on draft night tonight. One of those that I'm not necessarily thinking could be moved tonight, but just is now in potential for being moved. The Washington Commanders chose not to exercise the fifth-year option on defensive end Chase Young, who's came back from his ACL injury, trying to get back into the fold here. So this means it's his last year, at least last year in his current contract with the Washington Commanders. If you're the Chiefs, you need edge help. The Commanders might want draft picks. Is Chase Young a guy, if you were Brett Veach, that you would maybe offer some sort of compensation to for Washington to get him in the room to kind of fill up that idea of the Chiefs maybe needing some defensive line help? Is Chase Young a guy that you would go after?
If I was, I wish Washington had put that 50-year option on him, because then you get him for 2 years under a cheaper deal, and now you only get him for 1 year. So that's one thing that would worry me about a deal like that. I mean, you're only going to get him for 1 year, and then you're going to have to pay him. And the other thing is, what does Washington know about his medicals that maybe we don't know? I mean, that's kind of a strange move, I think, on Washington's part not to exercise that fifth-year option. I'm wondering whether they feel like there's some problem with him physically that might prohibit him from playing long term. So I'd be really wary of that. Certainly I'd investigate if I were the Chiefs. I'd try to figure out as best I could what the medicals were. But I don't know the double whammy of giving up something that might be pretty good in terms of a draft pick, plus having to dish out a big contract later on. That's a little bit of a concern.
Not often do I look at what players tweet on social media and try to take stock into it, because guys sometimes just say random things, tweet their feelings. We all know it can be a little wild. Clyde Edwards-Helaire tweeted out earlier today just a simple emoji of just a broken heart. And I'm not trying to read into this too deeply. However, he is a guy who has now lost his starting spot with the Chiefs. I think we can all kind of agree Isaiah Pacheco will be the lead back for the Chiefs going into this year. The Chiefs are thin at the running back spot, as you mentioned, Adam. So the idea of moving Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably not at the forefront of the Chiefs' mind, but they also have picked up Clyde Edwards-Helaire's fifth-year option. What do you think of Clyde Edwards-Helaire's position with the Chiefs right now, his state and standing amongst the Chiefs roster? And is he a guy you could see, if they got the right feeling they could replace him and get the bodies in the room, is he a guy you could see the Chiefs moving on from, not necessarily tonight, not necessarily being part of a draft night trade, but is Clyde Edwards-Helaire a guy you think, if all the other pieces fell into play, that maybe he gets sent out somewhere else and his time with the Chiefs might be coming to an end?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance of that. I think whether it's in the first round or later on, I think there's a great chance the Chiefs draft a running back this year. I don't think there's any question about that. And then then you wonder, once that happens, what is Clyde Edwards-Helaire's role? Isaiah Pacheco was kind of everything last year that the Chiefs wanted Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be, and he just hasn't been that for whatever reason. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's had a rather significant injury each of his 3 seasons. And doesn't mean he's going to be injured the rest of his career, but you have to be prepared for that now if you're the Chiefs. So how can you count on him? So it sounds like maybe you're asking me whether he's going to be a part of things next year. I don't know right now. I would say right now I don't think so. I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be with the Chiefs when the season begins, but plenty of time for that to change, but I don't see it right now. I think his time here is done.
That's kind of where I've been at. It just has never seemed to fully click. The injury is John Zennis. It makes it really fascinating. Sticking with the running backs for a moment here, Jerick McKinnon had career highs in touchdowns last year. Did so many great things with the Chiefs. We know he kind of likes to wait things out a little bit, see how he's feeling going through the summer months, and seeing where other positions and stuff may fall. Do you still feel a reunion between the Chiefs and McKinnon is in both parties' best interest, or what are your thoughts on if the Chiefs need some running back help in, like we've said, a thin room? Is Jerick McKinnon a guy you think, come June or something like that a reunion might finally happen?
Yeah, I think that could. Until he signed somewhere else, I think that very well could happen. He was a valuable guy for the Chiefs last year, and did they win the Super Bowl without him? I don't know. I feel like he was so good for them on passing downs last year, and they're going to have to. If he's not around, they're going to have to figure something else out there. Because I don't think Pacheco's going to be ready for that role, and I'd be surprised if any rookie they would bring in would be ready for that role. Maybe I'm wrong about that one, but we'll have to see about the player they bring in. But I do feel like he fills a specific role that the Chiefs have a need for, and doesn't mean they can't find it somewhere else in another player. But right now they don't have that player. So until they do, or until he signs somewhere else, I think it's a good fit.
Just a few more questions here for our guest, Adam Teicher, covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ESPN. You can follow Adam on Twitter at Adam Teicher. Looking at this roster for the Chiefs right now, before any rookies or any new players come into it more than what the Chiefs have already made, looking back to that great rookie class of last year, all those guys coming in, every guy makes the 53-man roster. So many good guys, so many guys ended up contributing. What is one player from that rookie class last year going into their second year this season? Who do you think makes the biggest jump in their play from last year to this year and could really step up and become a much better player from last year to this year for the Kansas City Chiefs from that 2022 rookie class?
Yeah, the guy I'm looking at is Brian Cook. Well, the safety they picked in the second round, played some last year as a third safety. But they had Juan Thornhill, they had Justin Reed, and he didn't play a lot on defense. Well, he's just going to be a starter now. They drafted him with the idea he was going to be the replacement for Juan Thornhill. So I'm looking for Brian Cook to kind of be that guy who makes that jump and become a pretty solid contributor for the Chiefs. That would be my pick.
Brian Cook, I think getting that real chance is going to be very interesting going forward. And looking at this Chiefs secondary, how do you think it is going to play out this season? Like we mentioned, Brian Cook's going to get more of a role. Trent McDuffie another year. Jalen Watson will probably get a good amount of run. Joshua Williams is there as well. This is a young secondary group for the Chiefs, but one that does seem to have a lot of talent amongst that youth. How do you think the secondary will shape up for the Chiefs this season?
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot to choose from. They're fairly deep, and I'm not convinced that they're done. I mean, let's see what happens this weekend. The one thing I've got my eye on there is L'Jarius Sneed is heading into the last year of his contract. And, do the Chiefs want to pony up at the end of the year and re-sign him, or is he going to be gone, and is he heading into his last year? I'm not convinced the Chiefs are necessarily done at corner. But in terms of, the guys they have on their roster now, certainly Trent McDuffie will be a starter and an every down guy. And then Sneed will as well. And those are your two guys who are out there every down. But then, Williams and Watson did a nice job for him for the most part as rookies last year. Those guys will be, the third and fourth corners in some order. And, last year the Chiefs sort of mixed and matched. They used those guys depending on the opponent and how they felt their talents best fit against that week's opponent. So I really like that strategy. I think it benefited them. So that's the plan at least for right now at corner. And then you've at safety you've got Cook and you've got Justin Reed and Chiefs signed Mike Edwards to be their third safety, and he'll end up on the field a lot, I'm sure, as well. Got some coverage skills, so I think the Chiefs have a lot to choose from back there, and they're in pretty good shape. But again, I'm not convinced, like we talked about earlier, I'm not convinced that they're necessarily if they see a guy they love when they're sitting there, they won't go that way. So we'll see if they do or not, but certainly not a priority for them. But finding good players, they can use them at a lot of different spots.
All right, Adam, my final two questions for you. My 2 for the road. First things first, if you had to pick one guy in the first round tonight that the Chiefs could reasonably get, because, I mean, we would all love, like, Will Anderson to follow the Chiefs. That'd be awesome. We all know realistically that isn't happening. Is there one guy tonight? What would be the one guy that if the Chiefs either moved up to select him or got him at pick 31, what is the one guy that the Chiefs drafted him tonight, you would go, that is a great pick, an excellent pick, it would be your favorite pick for the Chiefs tonight, you would go, that makes this team that much greater? Who is that one individual in tonight's draft?
Well, there's probably a few guys who fall into that category, but the guy I've got my eye on is Miles Murphy, a defensive end from Clemson. I don't think he's going to be there for the Chiefs. I think they would have to go up and get him and maybe move up, 4, 5, 6 spots or maybe even more. But I feel like that's a guy he's got the look of a guy who's going to be a really good long-term pro to me. So, and certainly the Chiefs have a need for another edge player. So I kind of have taken a liking through this process to Miles Murphy of Clemson, but again, not sure he's going to be there. The Chiefs might have to go up and get him.
I'm with you. Miles Murphy would be a good pick for the Chiefs. When Jake did his mock draft yesterday, he wishingly had Murphy falling all the way to 31 for the Chiefs to pick him. So who knows? Maybe stranger things happen. And my last thing for you, our list today was our favorite NFL draft moments. In all your time covering the NFL, covering for the Chiefs and overall, what would you really think back on and be kind of your favorite NFL draft moment? Either positively, just shocking, something funny, just in general, what would you say is your favorite NFL draft moment?
Well, I don't know. I'm probably, I view this through a Chiefs lens. So nothing really stands out to me other than Chiefs stuff right now. But I got to tell you, it's when in 2017, when I first heard the Chiefs were making a trade. And I said, okay, after all these years, the Chiefs are going to get themselves a quarterback, All these years, they didn't want a quarterback in the first round. They had coaches telling their GMs, no, I don't want to play a young guy. I have no interest in drafting and developing a guy. Let's go pick it at another place. Finally, I didn't know who the guy was yet. I figured it was either Mahomes or Deshaun Watson. I know the Chiefs liked both those guys, but I didn't know how much they liked at the time Mahomes. I knew they liked him. But just that moment there when the Chiefs have traded, and we didn't know who the pick was yet, but here's a quarterback. Here they're finally doing it after all these years, and now look how they got rewarded for that decision. So great decision there by the Chiefs. Took them far too long to do it, but first time they tried, they got it right.
They really did that. Hey, Adam, that was my favorite draft moment as well. And the Chiefs got Mahomes. It was crazy. Adam, thank you so much for joining me, my friend. Have a great rest of the evening and have some fun covering the NFL draft tonight. And hopefully the Chiefs can make some interesting moves that makes the night more fun for us.
Absolutely. Talk to you next time.
That is Adam Teicher, covers the Chiefs for ESPN. We'll take a time out. 2 o'clock hour coming up next. It's time for the final hour of Mic'd Up with Fulton and Dan on this Thursday afternoon. I want to give my thanks to Adam Teicher for coming on today's show, chatting all things Chiefs and the NFL draft. Coming up here in the final hour of Mic'd Up, we're going to give our draft predictions, any takes we might have on what's going to happen tonight. We're also going to break down Dan's mock draft and see who he has picked where. And I'll also remind you can go to 580wibw.com and see all 4 of our mock drafts. And we're going to see who was the most accurate at tonight's end. Jake was most accurate last year. Year before that was Brendan. I got a spoiler that I probably won't be the most accurate this year.
Oh, dear.
Because I don't make picks correct. We know this. It is historically tracked. I don't pick well. I don't get it.
You're bad at this, but we let you do it anyway.
I think at this point we let me do it just for the entertainment value. We have that coming up there. A little bit of start bench cut as well. And also look at the Royals series coming up with the Minnesota Twins, including game 1 tonight between Zach Greinke and Tyler Mahle for the division leading Minnesota Twins against the Royals, who sit at 6-19. Just a brutal start to the year. As always, you can join in on the show on the text line, 785-272-9429, and on our YouTube live stream. Go to youtube.com, Sports on 580 is the YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it. And you can jump in the live comment section as well. Dan, our guy Mark has a suggestion for you of what we should call the Lucero household.
Oh?
Lucero's Luxury Palace.
Once we get we're considering, we're in the early stages of considering a bathroom remodel. Once we get the master bath remodel, then I think we might qualify as a luxury palace.
Just the bathroom remodel, cool, like new fancy tiling and all that stuff.
We're ripping the guts out. We're putting brand new everything: toilet, vanity, medicine cabinet, sink, tub.
Are you guys gonna go with his and her sinks, the double sinks, or
no,
go with the single sink?
No, we don't have enough room in there to do two. So we'll probably just go one sink. But no, very preliminary stages, which means just kind of looking at stuff and trying to picture it a little bit.
A lot of time going to Lowe's and Home Depot.
Yes, that's where we spent Sunday, actually. Abby and I. So it's exactly what we did. It's exactly what we did.
It does honestly kind of sound like a relaxing way to spend a week.
It was a fun day out. Yeah.
Nice. That's what you love to hear. Oh, man. The NFL draft is today. Not a great... I got no segue from bathroom remodel into the NFL draft. Well, actually, teams are going to try and remodel themselves.
There
we go.
Yeah,
That's
speaking of doing a remodel.
Speaking of doing a remodel, Dan, we have not unveiled your mock draft nor got your thoughts on your mock draft yet. Brendan will break down his coming up on 580 Sports today live from the NFL draft. But for you, Dan, let's begin here. Let's unveil to the masses Dan Lucero's 2023 mock draft.
All right. You just want me to sprint through this?
Let's go five at a time. So 1 through 5. We'll see what you got. Go through. It's not a perfect split going by fives, but
sure.
We'll go through it. So what are your first 5 picks you have?
So like everybody else in the free world, I think Bryce Young's going number 1 to Houston or Carolina.
Houston wishes it was them at number 1.
We're off to a great start. Houston is going to stay at number 2. I think they'll draft the best defensive player available. That's Will Anderson from Alabama. Then I think we're going to have, I've got 2 trades in my mock draft. Some people like to do a bunch of trades. Some people like to do one completely free of trade.
I did 1 trade in my mock draft.
I'm trying to find the balance. So I got 2 trades in this draft. And my first trade is Tennessee and Arizona flipping some picks around. Tennessee moves up from 11 to 3 so that they can take C.J. Stroud from Ohio State. That leaves Will Levis at number 4 to Indianapolis. And number 5, Seattle selects Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech.
That's a good, strong start. I, much like you, also have Tennessee trading up to the number 3 spot to take a quarterback. I have Anthony Richardson going off the board at 3 because I have Houston taking C.J. Stroud at 2. I don't feel confident about that in the slightest, but I just feel like it's too much of a gamble to not go for the quarterback this year and pray you can win the quarterback sweepstakes next year. And they'll take him. But I have 4 straight quarterbacks going off the board of Young, Stroud, Richardson, Levis. And then I have your Seahawks taking Will Anderson. In my top 5.
If Anderson's there, I think they're going to take him.
Yeah. I think Tyree Wilson's a very fine consolation prize.
I have read lots of mock drafts in the last couple of days that say either the Seahawks are absolutely taking Jalen Carter or they're absolutely not taking Jalen Carter with the number 5 pick. I really don't think like they're in a position where they're not quarterback needy and they're going to have, I think, as a result, pretty much their choice of whatever defensive player they want. They've got to add some edge talent, some pass rushing talent. I had them going with Tyree Wilson in my draft. I feel like that's a more Seahawky pick.
Yeah.
I think they might be a little worried off of Jalen Carter. I think I have Carter sliding in my draft.
Okay, that's fair. What do you have picked 6 through 10?
So a run on corners at number 6, Devin Witherspoon from Illinois going to Detroit, and then Vegas following that up with a corner, Christian Gonzalez from Oregon. Bijan Robinson at number 8 to Atlanta. Too much smoke around that being their pick, even though they found a guy in the 6th round last year who rushed for 1,000 yards in Tyler Algier. I don't know why they draft another running back, but it sounds like Bijan Robinson to the Falcons is very realistic. So I've got Bijan mocked there. Number 9, I have Chicago getting the best offensive lineman in the draft, Peter Skoronski from Northwestern. And at 10, Jalen Carter to the Eagles, where he is an ideal fit as for a team that lost some veteran defensive tackles, but loves to build their defensive line from the interior out. And Jalen Carter's the best interior player. If they get him at number 10, that's bad for the rest of the NFC.
I would agree with that. You and I have a lot of similar players, 6 through 10. Not really anyone going to the same spot as outside of Chicago getting Skoronski. I have Vegas with Devin Witherspoon. I have Atlanta being intelligent and taking Christian Gonzalez. I have Jalen Carter to Detroit at 6. I don't know if he slides that much. And then I have Tyree Wilson to Philly at 10.
Okay. So at number 11, that's where I have Arizona picking after they make their trade. And I have Arizona going corner with Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State.
All right.
They need a lot on
They need
defense.
everything defensively.
They need a lot, and I think that's too high for any of the edges.
Okay.
Except maybe Nolan Smith. But I think Joey Porter Jr. will bring some nasty to that defense on the outside. At number 12, Houston gets their quarterback, Anthony Richardson. That's where I have Richardson at.
Okay.
I think Houston can lay in the cut and wait for their quarterback if they want to take the best defensive player on the board at 2. If the draft falls to them, in that way, they should be ecstatic. And number 13, Green Bay takes JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, the wide receiver from Ohio State. Then I have back-to-back offensive tackles, New England taking Broderick Jones from Georgia, and the Jets winding up with Paris Johnson from Ohio State.
My favorite part about your 14 and 15 is you and I have the exact same players just flipped. I have New England taking Paris Johnson and the Jets taking Broderick Jones. That is very hilarious to me. I also, much like you, have Green Bay taking Jackson Smith and Jigba. If he is there at 13, I just feel like that's what Green Bay's doing.
Yeah, I've heard some rumblings, seen some rumblings about Green Bay and a wide receiver to try and help out Jordan Love. I think it makes a lot of sense. So at number 16, resuming my mock draft, Deonte Banks, the cornerback from Maryland, to the Commanders, followed by another offensive tackle at 17, Darnell Wright of Tennessee, goes to the Steelers. Detroit adds another edge from the Big Ten, like they did last year, to a great deal of success. Lucas Van Ness from Iowa goes 18 to Detroit. Then Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame, at 19 to Tampa Bay. Then I have my second trade of the night. The Giants moving up 5 spots in a trade with Seattle to number 20 to snag Jordan Addison, the wide receiver from USC. Giants are dying for another wide receiver.
That's a very that trade wouldn't surprise me. The Giants do need receiver help.
I think they could wait at 25 and have some guys there, but I think they want the best guy they can get. And you combine that with Seattle's history of loving to trade back.
Yeah.
And so I found trade partners there.
That's fair. A few of my notables from that section of the draft. I have Detroit taking Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame.
They did just trade TJ Hawkinson.
They did trade T. Hawkinson. Need a tight end to help the offense. I think Michael Myers a good fit there. I have Tampa taking Miles Murphy out of Clemson. And then I have Seattle staying put at 20 and taking Jordan Addison out of USC. Slot receiver, I think, is where they would need more help than outside receiver. I think Addison slots in well as a slot as the third underneath option for Geno Smith. They feel like he partners well.
They desperately need a third guy to go with Metcalf and an aging Tyler Lockett. I think I would not be upset if they went wide receiver at 20 or anywhere with their second first round pick. Not one bit as a fan. So number 21, the Chargers get Nolan Smith out of Georgia to add to their impressive collection of edge rushers. Zay Flowers, the wide receiver from Boston College, to Baltimore at number 22. More wide receiver help for maybe Lamar Jackson, maybe not. At number 23, Minnesota drafts their quarterback of the future. This is where I have Hendon Hooker winding up, is Minnesota. I think they're ready to close the book on the Kirk Cousins era. And they'll take Hendon Hooker. Jacksonville at 24 takes Brian Branch, the safety from Alabama, best safety on the board. And then Seattle with the Giants pick at 25 takes Kalisha Cansey, the defensive tackle from Pitt. Aaron Donald has wrecked their business for so long that they take the next Aaron Donald. And that, like, let me smooth that out a little bit, because that sounds like I'm saying Kalisha Cansey is going to be the best defensive player in football over the course of his career. I'm not quite saying that. I'm saying
you're not fully saying.
I'm saying great athlete, pass rush threat, undersized from Pitt. That sounds like Aaron Donald to me.
It sounds incredible like Aaron Donald to me. A few notes for my section there. I have the Los Angeles Chargers taking Dalton Kincaid for that one. They need a tight end for Justin Herbert. I told Jake this. That is my most terrifying thing the Chargers could do. If they actually do that and take Dalton Kincaid, I might actually start worrying about the Los Angeles Chargers just a little bit. And then I have something crazy happening. I don't have the Giants taking a first-round wide receiver. I have them taking Osiris Torrance, the guard out of Florida.
Okay.
They need wide receiver help. They also need desperately more people to be able to play on that offensive line. They have maybe 2 offensive linemen at this moment in time. The interior's their weak spot. I think Brian Dable wants to protect his quarterback, whether that stays being Daniel Jones. So that's my thought there.
At number 26, Dallas takes a tight end. That's where I have Dalton Kincaid going to Utah at number 26. For the record, if the draft were to unfold this way and Seattle were sitting there at 25 and I were Kansas City, I'd call Seattle immediately.
Oh, I would
and
too.
Get to 25 and get Kincaid before either Dallas or Cincinnati could at 26 or 28. So I have Kincaid going to Dallas at 26. Then Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver from TCU, to Buffalo, another wide receiver for Josh Allen. At number 28, Cincinnati going with Keely Ringo from Georgia.
Okay.
They could use safety help.
Yeah.
Ringo played corner in college, but he might project as a safety. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife player from a winning program. They like to take players from winning college programs in Cincinnati. So Keely Ringo, number 28, to the Bengals. Number 29, Miles Murphy, the edge from Clemson, goes to the Saints. And number 30, I have Philadelphia taking Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama, Miles Sanders replacement. And then we just want to do 31.
Let's do 31.
31's the Chiefs pick. I said if they trade up, it's for a pass catcher. If they trade down, it's for an edge. If they stay put, I think the way this draft is unfolded, the wide receivers aren't there. The edge talent is a little iffy, I think, beyond Miles Murphy. I think, though, in this scenario, they can stay put and find a starting caliber offensive tackle, so they take Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma at number 31.
That, much again, similar picks from you. I have Dallas thinking this is where Bijan Robinson goes off the board. I have Dallas being stupid.
You know, that's so fascinating because that feels like a Jerry Jones pick, right?
Exactly, and that's why I don't think it's the right pick for them, but it feels like a Jerry Jones pick. I have Buffalo getting wide receiver help. They take Zay Flowers at 27. I also have a corner to Cincinnati, but I have Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State going to Cincinnati. I have Brian Breezy going to New Orleans, some defensive line help. And then you and I have identical 30 and 31. Jahmyr Gibbs to Philadelphia, Anton Harrison to Kansas City. So, because I'm much like you, if they stay pat with the way this draft unfolded, just go get yourself a starting right tackle.
So go ahead and chalk it up as a dead certainty that the Chiefs will not select Anton Harrison tonight.
You and I have him there looking at all these. And again, just a reminder, you can check out all of our mock drafts, Dan's, myself's, Jake's, and Brendan's on 580wibw.com. And give us your thoughts on the text line, on our YouTube comments, on our Twitter page, Sports on 580 as well, if you have any questions or comments on our mock drafts. Brendan and I also have an absurd amount of similar picks throughout the draft, which has him terrified. Which, I mean, I can't blame him.
It's not very nice of him, but I understand where it's coming from.
That's right. When it comes to me in picks, I'm no longer offended when anyone says they're terrified when we're picking the same things, because if history says anything, if I'm picking something, it's not going to happen. I mean, I did do that to your favorite hockey team to begin the Stanley Cup playoffs.
You did. You put a whammy on them.
I did, and I learned my lessons as time goes, and sometimes I don't as well. With the NFL draft coming up tonight, is there anything that you think could happen this evening? Any big prediction you have for tonight that you think, with not, perfect certainty, because we can't predict everything around here, but you think, man, I really feel this will happen this evening?
Like, you talking short term? Or you talking like a long term outlook?
Let's go with short term in this draft specifically. Okay. Any specific player to a certain spot, any amount of trades or guys being moved?
I think it'll be a ton of trades. I think we're going to see no fewer than 4 trades tonight. Man. I think we're going to see a lot of activity, people moving up. I said 6 pass catchers. I feel pretty firm about 6 pass catchers in the first round. And I will make my long-term prediction that the best quarterback in this draft will be Anthony Richardson.
Really?
I am
okay.
I'm all in on the athleticism. I understand that in college he put up some really bad numbers, and there were times that he did not look like he had ever played the position before. I also think that they had no good wide receivers. It was the first year with a new offensive coordinator, new head coach. I think he's, by all accounts, a really smart kid, really studious. I think he'll be able to learn, and he is by miles the best athlete, the best arm, the best build. Everything about him athletically is the total package. He's a one-of-one athlete at the position. I would rather take my chances on that. I know Bryce Young's going to go number 1. I like Bryce Young. I think he's going to have a fine NFL career. I think the highest ceiling and the best career will be Anthony Richardson, and I hope he ends up in a situation where he doesn't have to play right away. I think Seattle's such a great fit for him. I really do. If Seattle took him at 5, it would not shock me in the least. And have him learn behind Geno Smith for a year or maybe even 2. And because he's a young guy, too. He's only 21. Man, I think Anthony Richardson is going to be special. And I'll put my name on that right here today. That guy has the best career of any of the quarterbacks, followed by Bryce Young, followed by C.J. Stroud, followed by mayonnaise in the coffee, Mitch Trubisky, a.k.a. Will Levis.
Did you just say mayonnaise in the coffee?
Yeah, it's the whole thing. He did.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Drinks his coffee with a little scoop of the mayo in it.
Disgusting.
I will never try that as long as I live. You could tell me that would add 10 years to my life, and I'd say, is it really worth it?
Is it really worth it?
I'll stick to cream and sugar, man.
I'm with you that I think that a lot of trades will happen tonight, and I've come around to Anthony Richardson. When it was all started, I didn't get it, and I was like, this guy's not a lot of college production. Things look really wonky. Can he get there? The more I've learned about the person has made me go, this kid could be something real special, because he does. He seems like he has the right mentality that you need to grow and produce as an NFL player. So I would not be surprised if he becomes the best quarterback out of this draft. I still kind of think it will be Bryce Young. I think if Bryce Young just did not have the size problems, and I don't even like calling them problems, because I don't really know if they truly are. But if he didn't have the size questions, I think it would be so much more of a slam dunk of what Bryce Young is, because I think his mental ability to process the game of football and his unflappability in big games is going to translate perfectly to the NFL.
I think he's incredibly smart and processes really well. I'm not on the video, man. What the hell happened?
Oh man, you must have popped out there. Let's rectify that.
Put me on the video. People need to look at me while I'm talking. This is really me. This isn't artificial intelligence. This is an AI.
I did ChatGPT Dan with the conversation.
ChatGPT to me would be terrible.
Like every
question you asked, it would be like, this reminds me of a Simpsons episode when this thing happened.
Is there a Simpsons draft parallel you could make right now? Is there a Simpsons thing you could pull for the draft?
There's a Simpsons thing I could pull for the draft. Man, that is that's a great question. I'll give you one. I'll give you one. Everybody talking about Bryce Young and his size and how small he is, and somebody compared him to being built like Tila one time, which
they did
with the now disgraced former model, and that reminded me of the time Marge Simpson said,
"Well, that's true. We should say it."
Yes, I'm with that. I truly am.
So, one of my favorite go-to Simpsons callbacks. Anyway, Anthony Richardson. Yeah, all the way in on Anthony Richardson. And I honestly, I give you my mock draft. I'm hoping tonight, if the Seahawks ended up with Jalen Carter 5 and Anthony Richardson at 20, I would do a lap around the city. I'd have so much juice. I'd just run a full lap around Peak, I feel like. I would be so cranked.
I've said the same thing. If the Chiefs traded up for Dalton Kincaid, I would also be taking a lap around the city of Topeka this evening. To wrap up our draft thoughts here, the K-State guys, these two in particular, Felix Anudike-Uzomah and Julius Brents, where do you think they go, and what do you think an NFL career they have? And we can add on Deuce Vaughn here as well. What kind of a career do you think those three will have, and where would you see any of those three guys going tonight?
So I think it's within the realm of possibility that both Brents and Anudike-Uzomah hear their names called tonight. Like that's not out of the question.
That's why I'm at.
They think they're kind of borderline late first round guys. Forget whose mock it was that had Felix to the Chiefs. I think it was the ringer, Danny Kelly, in his last mock draft had Felix to the Chiefs. I think that's possible. I think Julius Brents maybe to like Cincinnati at 28. They're looking at a corner. Could make a lot of sense because they've got some NFL skills. There's no doubt that they've got some NFL skills. There are a lot of guys, though, that I think are those in that late first round category, depending on how the draft falls. There might be a run on edges, and teams feel like, hey, I got to get the edge I want. So maybe the Chiefs feel that way and they spring for Felix. Or teams feeling like, man, there's a run on cornerbacks. A bunch of guys are off the board. Maybe Emmanuel Forbes, Cam Smith, hearing their names called. And man, I better get a corner. And Julius Brents hears his name get called in that scenario. So I think it's more likely that both of them are tomorrow night, maybe early tomorrow night, round 2. But I think both of those guys have the skill set to be productive NFL players. I think Brents can be a day one starter, and Felix can definitely be a rotational defensive end in the George Karlaftis mold. I think right away. As far as Deuce Vaughn, he's a day 3 guy for me. And I don't know who is going to take him, but all I know is whoever ends up with him is going to be very happy.
I'm with you there when it comes to Deuce, and even with Felix and Julius. I've said this, I think, numerous times at this point. I think Julius Brents' floor is almost a CB2 in the NFL. I really like his skills. The physical traits that he has, you don't get them combined in a corner very often. Of good speed, good size, good length, good athleticism. Those are the type of things you love to see in a corner. And just watching the way he played and the plays he made, I think give him a chance to really, especially if he lands in the right spot, can move him up. Because I think, I'm with you. Him and Felix, I think, could be tonight guys. I don't know if either of them will be. And then when it comes to Brent specifically, whoever gets him is going to be ecstatic.
If I had to guess most likely to be tonight, I would almost go Brent.
I kind of would too. I think because looking at the depth of corners and now that corner big board is shaking, I think there's a higher likelihood someone takes a chance, especially at the back of the first. Like if Cincinnati needs a corner and the board isn't looking, ideal, I could see them taking a swing on Julius Brents, whereas the edges are just so much of a different collection.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really good edges we haven't talked about in our mock draft yet. No, we didn't discuss Keon White. We didn't talk about Will McDonald before. We didn't talk about Derek Hall. We didn't talk. I have Brian Breesy, the interior pass rusher from Clemson, going in my first round. There's a lot of guys. God, I'm not going to get his name right. But kid from Northwestern, who's from
Adabatima Abadwore.
From North Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean that's a guy. Like, don't be shocked if the Chiefs maybe look in his direction. Yeah, like he's a Spagnuolo body.
He is. And that's the biggest thing we're trying to predict a Chiefs player is, are they a Spagnuolo body type of guy?
For sure.
But no, I think that's another good reason why Felix might fall out of the first, essentially, is just there's a lot of good edge talent. But tomorrow early and coming up in day 2 tomorrow, especially if we hear both Felix and Julius Brentz's names called. We're going to take a timeout here on Mike Dub. Coming next, time for us to play a little start bench cut. Time for a little start, bench, or cut here on Mic'd Up. Very fun game where we just sit here, find 3 random things, and rank them in a small way. It's fun, it's simple, it's enjoyable.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
All right, Dan. I have 3 mid-round wide receivers for you.
Okay.
All guys I think that are going to be taken in the second round, or even maybe third if we're getting real pushy. Start, bench, or cut. Jonathan Mingo, Marvin Mims, Jalen Hyatt.
Okay, I'm going to start Marvin Mims.
I'm going to start Mims because I think you can get him a little bit later. You can get those other 2 guys, but I think he'll provide similar value. So in terms of the value added, also guy averaged like 19 yards a catch in Big 12.
Yeah, he did.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I'm going to bench Mingo. No, I'm going to bench Hyatt.
Okay.
No, I'm going to bench Mingo. I'm going to cut Hyatt. And here's why I'm cutting Hyatt. And not because I think he's a bum. Like, you start bench cut thing, you can say, oh, I'm cutting this person. It's, that must mean I think he's a bum. No, I think Jalen Hyatt is not a bum. I need to see some proof that Jalen Hyatt can do what he does in a system that is not so wide receiver friendly. That was maybe the most quarterback and wide receiver friendly offense in the whole country last year. Josh Heupel will do the damn thing. It was a lot of chuck it up there, dog, to Jalen Hyatt and him being able to do his thing because he's faster than a lot of guys. But as far as like a complete wide receiver skill set, I'm less sold on his, and I'm sold on Mims's and Mingo's. So there you have it.
That's about where I fall with the three of them. We've been very Jake has been very loud about how much he likes Marvin Mims and how he feels that he'll be, kind of he's given him a little bit of the label that he gave Creed Humphrey of just, this guy, whoever drafts him, someone should get him. He will be a stud. And I'm with you on Jonathan Mingo over Jalen Hyatt for the simple fact of, for Jalen Hyatt, I need to see more of a route tree. And I'm not trying to discredit him or insult him, but a lot of what he was asked to do at Tennessee was running a straight line past somebody, running a straight line for a while and break it off a little bit to the left or right, or run really far past somebody, then break inside. It was not a lot of variety in what was being done. And I'm not going to sit here and say Jonathan Mingo had to do a bunch more because Ole Miss's offense was definitely not that great. But I think there's just a little bit more I would see that makes me think he could be a better prospect at the next level. I think so.
All right, for my start bench cut today, you're a baseball guy like me. I'm going to give you 3 surprising division leaders as we round out the month of April. The Arizona Diamondbacks atop the National League West at 14-12. The Texas Rangers leading the American League West by half a game at 14-10. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are 18-8 after they win today. That is most wins of any team presently in the National League. Start, bench, or cut. Want those 3 surprising early season division leaders.
So Diamondbacks, Pirates, and I've already blanked on the third. I'm so sorry.
Rangers.
The Rangers. I don't know why the Rangers just went in one ear and out the other. Probably because they beat up my team so much.
Brendan does that to me a lot too.
Man, I'm starting the Rangers. They're the ones I believe in the most. I really think the Rangers are a really good team at this point. And then this feels this feels absolutely psychotic to say. I'm starting the Rangers. I'm benching the Pirates. I'm cutting the Diamondbacks.
Okay.
Between the Pirates and the Diamondbacks, I don't feel like the thing is, I've watched the Diamondbacks already start to skid, and I can see where it comes from. They're so young, and they chase a lot. They're not very patient for the most part, though the Royals couldn't take advantage of that. And, outside of Zach Gallen, there's not a lot of that pitching. I go, that's good pitching. I believe in that. The Pirates, that offense is finding rhythm with a good balance of veterans and some young guys playing well. The platoon splits worry me a little bit right now. They are getting a lot of favorable matchups on that front. And I don't know if I can trust a Pirates rotation that's doing what it's doing, including the fact that rotation features Rich Hill, who's 75 years old. But the Pirates are winning a lot of games right now.
Yeah, they got the best record of the 3 teams, which makes it so hard for me to cut them. But that's what I would do.
I can't blame you.
I'm cutting the Pirates. They got a lot of guys way over their head right now, and I don't think that's going to continue. They've had a pretty easy schedule. The one thing working in their favor, NL Central here stink.
Oh, absolutely.
But the Cardinals are going to find their footing. The Cardinals have had bad stretches before and made the playoffs. They'll be fine, I'm sure, which annoys me, but they'll be fine. So yeah, cutting the Pirates, benching the Diamondbacks. I think you laid it out pretty good, but they do have, I think, in Zach Gallen, they've got Pittsburgh Lax, which is a stopper.
That's true.
Top end guy in the rotation. Texas, that's a solid team. They're 14-10 right now. They're doing this mostly without Corey Seager's hurt. The inevitable Jacob deGrom injury will set them back a little bit, but they've got good depth in that rotation. And I'm worried about the bullpen, but I think that Texas team will play off caliber.
I really do. And the fact that they're doing all this offensively without Corey Seager really makes me have a lot of faith in them. Last one for you here, Dan. Baseball edition, but fun.
Okay.
Baseball mascots.
All right.
Orbit, Slugger, and Blooper.
Orbit is the Astros mascot.
Yep.
And I'm going to start Blooper because I like his social media presence.
I do too.
Blooper's strong on Twitter.
Tweet game.
Yeah, Blooper's got good social media skills. Also really fun name to say.
It really is.
Kids dig that. Who doesn't love Blooper? Blooper sounds like the name of the show that came on PBS.
taught kids how to dance and accept themselves for who they are. Blooper. Yeah, Blooper. Gotta start Blooper. I can't cut Slugger. Even though
fair.
I don't know what's going on with his head, like crown head thing.
The crown that morphs into his head. Yeah, I don't get that either.
I've got some questions about that, but also, what is orbit? At least I know what Slugger is.
That's the greatest question.
I don't know what Blooper is either.
But
at least I know what Slugger is.
So he goes to the bench.
Slugger is an anthropomorphic lion. We know that much.
He goes to the bench, and I got to cut Orbit. Orbit was actually behind the sign stealing.
He was the one banging on the desk the whole time.
Orbit was in the dugout constantly banging on.
That's right. I'm accusing Orbit of assisting in the cheating scandal.
I wanted to intentionally keep the Philly Fanatic out of here because I feel like sometimes it's too easy to put him on either end of the spectrum.
The Philly Fanatic's a goat, man.
The Philly Fanatic's amazing.
He's on the Mount Rushmore mascot.
I think I'm with you though of starting Blooper, benching Slugger, and cutting Orbit. Because I can't cut Slugger. I can't do it. I just can't. Though I have the same questions about his head. Yeah, it's got that Lisa Simpson, Bart Simpson-esque
man,
on there.
It's just throwing me. Like, is it part of his head? It's like Toad, right?
Yes.
Like Toad from we've got like the mushroom. Like,
is the mushroom part of the head? Is it a hat?
I like to do a podcast once. They said what he's got over there is called hat meat, and I've never been able to see Toad again without thinking about the term hat meat. So like, yeah, that's what maybe Slugger's got like crown meat. I don't know, man.
I'm also not going to be able to think of Toad anymore without thinking of hat meat.
I'm sorry to do that to you.
It's okay. Now, do it for start bench cut here on my top. Coming up next, we'll look at the Royals and the Twins. Wrapping up today's edition of Mic'd Up with Fulton and Dan. Kansas City Royals are headed to Minnesota as they head to Target Field to begin a 4-game set with the Twins this evening. And personally, I'm happy that there will be a distraction from the Royals tonight. I will be, of course, paying attention to the game because
that's what you do.
Come hell or high water, I'm watching every inning of this team.
Wish I could bet on when we see the official tweet of Fulton Caster watching the Royals, which is the those 4 magic words. I hate it here. I think I've seen on my timeline quite often when the Royals play. And when will we see it tonight? Will we see it after Tyler Mahle pitches 7 shutout innings? Will we see it after the Royals fall behind 3-0 in the first inning? Who can say? Who can say?
It is true. I have not tried to make that my go-to, but it's really easily just become it of just because that's what I feel. And that's usually my indicator if things have gotten really bad. It's just I feel I hate it here. Yeah. I don't like being around this anymore. And luckily I got the NFL draft tonight to distract me a little bit while I also watch Tyler Mahle probably carve up my favorite baseball team. The lineup is out for the Royals this evening, and there is a very, very notable absence for the second consecutive game. Lineup for the Royals tonight in support of Zach Greinke leading off will be Bobby Witt Jr. He's the designated hitter this evening, getting a half day. Vinny Pasquantino will bat second and play first base. MJ Melendez will be behind the plate catching tonight and batting third. Franmil Reyes is in left field. He will bat cleanup. Kyle Isbell's in center. He will bat fifth. Michael Massey, your second baseman, will bat sixth. Hunter Dozier is at third base. He will bat seventh. Nicky Lopez is the shortstop. He will bat eighth. And Jackie Bradley Jr. is in right field batting ninth.
Man, I don't got anybody else who could take those at bat. I like to watch.
Which guy is this in reference to, Dan? Who are we referencing with that statement? Because there's like three in this lineup.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. No, I'm talking about Jackie Bradley Jr.
I'm with you. As much.
They don't have any like mid-level prospect down at AAA. They might want to give those at bats to.
I would like Tyler Gentry to maybe get some at bats while Nate Eaton can't hit a baseball, but who knows? Because if Nate Eaton could hit a baseball, it'd probably be him instead of Jackie Bradley Jr. right now. But Nate Eaton can't hit a baseball.
Yeah, I guess it would have been him, but 1 for 25 with 13 strikeouts.
You can't. Buddy needs a trip to Omaha to reset the brain.
Yeah.
Because defensively would have been just fine with that howitzer of a right arm he has.
I was going to say that's like if you let me bat 25 times against Major League pitching, except no, it would be 0 for 25 with 24 strikeouts. Who am I kidding? 25 strikeouts.
Maybe you like pop one up.
Nah, man. It would have to be a hanger. There's a reason they DH'd for me my final 2 years of high school baseball.
That's fair.
Didn't let me bat at all.
I've always said many a times, when I played, I was never a great hitter. All I could do was field. I was a consistent number 9 man in the lineup.
You are Nate Eaton then, yeah.
I wish I had the arm of Nate Eaton.
Good field, no hit.
I'm a poor man's Nicky Lopez.
Fulton, the Nicky Lopez of the crew. Very, very much. Which I guess would make me the now my left arm still functions, so I'm not quite Chris Bubich. I didn't throw hard enough to throw out my arm. I always say that. I never got hurt in all my years of pitching. I didn't throw hard enough to hurt my arm. I didn't spin it enough to.
Are you the Ryan Yarborough of the team then?
100%. Absolutely. I could give you some Ryan Yarborough
You're
innings.
a soft toss and lefty.
I could give you Ryan Yarborough innings right now. About an 85-mile-an-hour fastball and a changeup. And then a changeup off the changeup. I could not give you that velocity right now, for the record. I could have given you that in my athletic prime.
You couldn't give me that. We couldn't go out to a mound right now and you give me 85.
No, I haven't thrown a baseball in anger in so long, man. I don't know what I could give you. If I could get into the mid 70s, I'd probably be proud of myself.
The question now becomes, now that we've decided this, what are Jake and Brendan?
Okay.
Now that we're here, we're down this rabbit hole. We're continuing down it.
Okay. Man, is there any way to do this without being mean?
No, there's not. We're already being mean to ourselves. We compared ourselves to Nicky Lopez and Ryan Yarborough.
Well, Jake's the Salvi, right? Like, he's the heart and soul. He's been here the longest.
Yeah, I would say so.
If anybody were going to dump Gatorade on me, I would suspect him.
Yeah,
like, right
I should
away.
agree with that.
Yeah, he's.
I don't know if he would have any ounce of plate discipline.
He's the captain, man. He's been around the longest. He runs the show. He's the captain, so he's Salvi, obviously.
Okay.
So we're nice to him.
We'll be nice.
Brendan's tough.
Brendan's tough. Is there a player that we can match up with, being tall, lanky? There's no type 2 diabetics on the team, so we can't play that card.
No, there's not. That is tough. Maybe like Amir Garrett, like all arms and legs.
Yeah.
A little bit of that to him.
A little bit of that to him.
Yeah.
I think Brendan would have to be the. We'll get their thoughts, but I think Brendan would have to be the Amir Garrett of the team, maybe. Just a lot of arms and legs coming at you. Not much. Maybe it's the Josh Taylor of the team now. That's a big old dude just throwing a bunch of limbs at you.
Yeah, it's unfortunate he's not left-handed. It would be a much easier comparison that way.
Yeah.
But no, like you run out of guys where it's a nice thing to compare them.
Oh yeah, no. The only nice comparison here is we've said Jake is Salvi on this team.
Brendan's really good at social media. Maybe he's the Vinny Pasquantino.
Honestly, I think Brendan could fit the pass squatch of the team.
Yeah,
willing to make all the jokes, willing to be very entertaining. I think it would fit up well. I think it would. Going back to the Royals lineup after this tangent of which members of the 580 Sports team are what Royals player. No Salvador Perez for the second straight day.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even pinch hit last night, which was very intriguing to me as I looked at some of it.
Yeah, and we brought that up a little bit in our very brief episode of 580 Sports Talk yesterday, but Matt Quatrero made it clear, like health-wise, it wasn't going to happen for Salvi, that it was a full off day for him, because it was strange. They pinch hit twice in the ninth, and then they let Fermin bat. Which
the minute Freddie Fermin came up, I went, okay, Salvi just was never going to play today because there is no sensible reason Freddie Fermin's batting and Matt Quatrero's not pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. And then him not playing today, I don't know if I have any level of a panic meter rising because he does get so beat up. He had gotten kind of dinged up. That last start against Arizona, gotten a lot of balls fouled off him and different things like that. But are you concerned at all that Sal's missed 2 days, or are you relieved that a Royals manager is not rushing Salvador Perez back to the field and
overdriving Sal?
Yeah, and not letting Sal overdrive himself.
Well, it's a luxury you have with Fermin on the 26-man roster, right? Is you don't have to. You can catch Fermin and you can play Melendez in the DH role as he continues to get healthy. It's a tough spot. You hope Sal's all right, but also he's an older player, and sometimes those aches and pains take a little longer to get over than they used to.
It really does. Zach Greinke tonight.
Yeah,
I've said this numerous times at this point. He cannot seem to pitch away from Kauffman Stadium.
It's very strange.
It's a very odd thing. Do you think he'll have another struggling outing pitching away from Kauffman? Because, he gives up, what was it, one or two runs against Minnesota on the opening day start. He's facing a near identical lineup, a few different changes. Joey Gallo's hitting the ball better than he did that opening weekend. But outside of that, it's very similar. Would you foresee, Zach, these road struggles continuing? And moreover, in the times you've watched him pitch this year, is there anything about the road struggles that you think you can point out of what's the problem, or is it just this weird thing that's happening?
I think it's just a weird thing that's happening. Small sample size noise. I think at this point he looks like the same pitcher. If anything, it's probably just the environment. Like, Kauffman Stadium is pretty pitcher friendly. Other ballparks aren't necessarily as pitcher friendly, and Zach Greinke allows a lot of contact at this stage in his career. We know that. So any ballpark that's a little more unforgiving to pitchers is a place where Greinke is naturally going to have a little bit of a harder time.
That's very fair. The lineup is up for Minnesota Twins. They have Byron Buxton, their DH, leading off. I like Carlos Correa and Jorge Polanco. He's a new addition to the lineup since the opening weekend series. Trevor Larnach will be playing tonight, and left Jose Miranda is their third baseman. Joey Gallo will be at first base now. Christian Vasquez, their catcher. Max Kepler, who led off that series again in Kansas City to begin the year, he'll be batting eighth, and then old friend Michael A. Taylor and center field batting ninth for Minnesota. Tyler Mahle is their starter this evening, the most gettable of the three, because after Mahle, you have to face Pablo Lopez, Sonny Gray, and Joe Ryan yet again, who,
those guys are
allowed a combined one earned run over 3 games.
They're royal killers.
They're definitely something, and it makes me very sad to have to keep dealing with them, but that's the way it goes. We'll take our final time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming next, we'll wrap things up with the mic drop. All right, Dan, let's wrap things up here on our first swapped host edition of Mic'd Up and 580 Sports Talk. What do you got for your first mic drop you've gotten to do?
R.I.P. to Jerry Springer, icon of trash television, dead today at 79. In his honor, I request that all of you take care of yourselves and each other.
Perfection, Dan. Absolute perfection. Yeah, R.I.P. to Jerry Springer. You can have your opinions about some things as much as you want. There were many a sick day at school where I sat at home watching daytime TV and I watched Jerry Springer, and I got hours of entertainment from that. So R.I.P. to an absolute influential member of daytime television. My mic drop's very simple. It's what it always is. Royals, please don't break my heart this evening. Be competitive. And then, though, more importantly, Chiefs, please get Dalton Kincaid. You don't have to, but I'd be a very big fan. I'd be a very, very big fan. That'll do it for Mic'd Up today. I want to thank Dan so much for being a part of my co-host this afternoon.
Thanks for putting up with me.
It's a pleasure. You're welcome back anytime. Look what I have to deal with usually with Jake. Jake and Brendan will be part of 580 Sports. Coming up next, live for the NFL Draft. We'll be back tomorrow with more draft coverage, all coming up here on 580 WIBW.
Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from